Chapter 237. This won't do. This boy's talent is too terrifying. If I let him escape today, it will be even more difficult to seize his body when his cultivation increases greatly in the future. Yuan Ling's eyes were cold. He had already made up his mind. He would rather attract the attention of the Earth Immortal realm than let Yi Xian go today. Boom! Yuan Ling took a step forward and turned into a beam of immortal light, entering the Earth Immortal realm. He chased after Yi Xian violently. Obviously, if he did not destroy Yi Xian's divine soul today, wouldn't his 10,000 years of waiting be in vain? An unimaginable amount of spiritual qi rushed toward him. Yi Xian took a deep breath and immediately felt refreshed. Even the blood and qi in his body were boiling violently at this moment. Before Yi Xian could observe his surroundings, he heard an explosion behind him. A beam of immortal light covered the sky and struck down. Yuan Ling had actually followed him out of the retrograde passage. He was chasing after Yi Xian with a ferocious expression. Run! Yi Xian didn't dare to hesitate in the slightest. He violently circulated the undying immortal scripture as he absorbed the dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth. He used the cloud riding technique, and a black cloud appeared beneath his feet as he fled into the distance in a panic. Little bastard, let's see where you can run to. Yuan Ling had already thrown caution to the wind. The Tai immortal light shone in all directions. He also used the cloud riding technique, but he was 100 times faster than Yi Xian. In a flash, he blocked Yi Xian's path. Yuan Ling, do you really think that Lao Tzu is afraid of you? After entering the Earth Immortal realm, Yi Xian could feel that his body and cultivation were improving at an extremely terrifying speed. The endless spiritual qi was surging into his body uncontrollably. Yi Xian's face was filled with ecstasy, but his heart was heavy to the extreme. He knew that he'd made the right bet. After entering the Earth Immortal realm, his potential to become an immortal was erupting. However, he needed time to raise his cultivation. Crack! A sound like a flood breaking through a dam came from Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian's cultivation base had actually advanced to the Xian Immortal realm in just a few dozen breaths of time. This also caused his cracked body to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! How could Yuan Ling not see the change in Yi Xian's cultivation base? His expression changed drastically. With a wave of his sleeve, a large amount of primordial immortal light blasted towards Yi Xian. Bang! Tens of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers were turned into dust by a single attack from the origin spirit. Yi Xian was also sent flying tens of thousands of miles away by this attack, and he was in an even more sorry state as he fled into the distance. Although Yi Xian had stepped into the Xian Immortal realm, he was still no match for Yuan Ling, who was a primordial immortal. Now he could only flee with all his might. Yi Xian should feel lucky. If not for Yuan Ling not wanting to hurt his body, Yi Xian would have died in Yuan Ling's hands. How could Yuan Ling give him a chance to escape? Rumble. The mountains and rivers shattered, and the heavenly clouds roiled. The two of them chased and fled, releasing terrifying immortal light that rippled in all directions. As for Yi Xian, in the midst of his endless escape, both his body and cultivation were increasing at an inconceivable speed. A month later, Yi Xian stepped into the golden immortal realm and could already dodge Yuan Ling's primordial immortal light. 3 months later, Yi Xian stepped into the true immortal realm. Although he was still fleeing crazily, he would occasionally cast a few immortal techniques at Yuan Ling, catching Yuan Ling by surprise. Another half a year passed. In the endless pursuit, Yuan Ling finally discovered an extremely unacceptable fact. The fact was that Yi Xian's cultivation base was increasing rapidly. If he broke through to the primordial immortal realm, not to mention whether he could shatter Yi Xian's primordial spirit, he might even be defeated by Yi Xian. Why? Why? He has just become an immortal. How can he cross 3 realms in a row? Yuan Ling kept muttering to himself in shock as he chased after Yi Xian. He really couldn't figure out the key point. In fact, Yuan Ling had already sunk into paranoia. If he could calm down, he should have discovered that Yi Xian was a Mahayana realm cultivator. He had also experienced the 3 questions of heaven and earth and cultivated the immortal scripture. These were all Yi Xian's foundation. When he became an immortal in the mortal world couldn't withstand Yi Xian's power. It could only allow him to become a celestial immortal. But it was different now. Yi Xian had stepped into the earth immortal realm. Under the situation where the heavenly Tao was complete, there was also a sky full of spiritual qi for him to absorb. The potential of becoming an immortal that had been suppressed in his body had completely erupted in the earth immortal realm. No, if this goes on, not to mention whether I can occupy his body, I might even die in the hands of this little bastard. Yuan Ling murmured coldly. He had already discovered the seriousness of the matter. Little bastard, even if I can't get your body, I will destroy you today. Yuan Ling finally had the thought of destroying both the jade and the stone. Since he couldn't get Yi Xian, he would destroy Yi Xian. At most, he would wait for an endless amount of time. He definitely couldn't let Yi Xian live. Rumble. The cultivation of a Tai Xian immortal finally erupted. Yuan Ling didn't hold back anymore. He activated the immortal killing technique and drove the spiritual qi in the sky for millions of miles. It turned into a Tai immortal light that covered the sky and violently attacked Yi Xian. Huh. All of a sudden, Yi Xian's escaping figure stopped. He turned around and looked at Yuan Ling ferociously. His whole body was glowing. It was a type of immortal light that had never been seen before. This type of immortal light was called the Tai immortal light. Break for me. It was as if the immortal thunder from the 9 heavens was exploding. It was as if the luminous star river was shaking. A loud explosion came from Yi Xian's body. The shackles in his body were broken and he directly broke into the Tai Xian immortal realm. Soul-subduing banner. Yi Xian held the soul-subduing banner in his hand. He was wrapped in Tai immortal light. When he waved the banner, the wind and clouds in this area changed. Although the soul-subduing banner didn't scream, the Tai immortal light that burst out caused the mountains and rivers in all directions to shake. Bang! 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 The endless sky suddenly shattered. The mountains and rivers in millions of miles turned into dust. When the 2 Tai Xian immortals' techniques collided, it created a scene of destruction. Damn it! Looking at Yi Xian's techniques, how could Yuan Ling not see that Yi Xian had already stepped into the Tai Xian immortal realm? This made his face distorted and his eyes turned extremely red. I'll kill you. Yuan Ling went completely berserk. He ignored everything and attacked Yi Xian with all kinds of immortal techniques. Old dog, we don't know who will kill who today. When Yi Xian stepped into the Tai Xian immortal realm, he could feel that his potential to become an immortal had been exhausted. However, it didn't matter because he was already in the same realm as Yuan Ling. He didn't have to worry about his life anymore. Immortal transformation art. Yi Xian attacked with a powerful immortal technique. This immortal transformation art was a secret technique in the immortal scripture. It could kill immortals and destroy gods. Its power was unimaginable. Bang! 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 The 2 of them attacked each other. Neither of them took half a step back. They fought from the sky to the ground and from the ground to the sky. Everywhere they passed, everything was annihilated. It was a terrifying scene. The Earth immortal realm was vast and boundless. It was divided into 4 continents and 4 seas. The Dongxing Divine Land, the Aparagodania continent, the Nanzanbu continent, and the Utarakuru continent. The 4 seas were divided into the East, West, North, and South seas. They were controlled by the dragon tribe of the 4 seas and interspersed between the 4 continents. Chapter 238. The people of Dongxing Divine Prefecture respected the heavens and the earth and worshipped Taoism. The people of Aparagodania continent were not greedy and did not kill. They worshipped Buddha wholeheartedly and respected the Western Spirit Mountain. The people of Nanzhan continent were greedy and killed a lot. It was more chaotic. Taoism, Buddhism, Devil Dao cultivators, and other sects were involved in many disputes. The North Continent was a paradise for demons. Although they loved to kill, it was only because they wanted to make a living. They were clumsy and unemotional, so they did not do much. Barren mountains and unruly rivers were filled with giant beasts from the primordial age. Years after years of slaughter, it was the most chaotic continent. Most of the 4 prefectures were mountain ranges that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles. Between the mountains, there were many flat lands that stretched for millions of miles. There were also many countries that were located in the flat lands. Some of the countries were even several times larger than the human world. Above the earth immortal realm, there were 33 levels of heaven. The immortals and gods of the heavens lived there. There was also the ruler of the 3 realms who sat in the bullfighting palace to manage the 3 realms. Below the earth immortal realm, there were 18 levels of hell. The 10 kings of hell ruled over billions of souls and controlled the reincarnation of life and death. At this moment, Yi Xian and Yuan Ling were attacking each other. Every time they used a powerful immortal technique, they would destroy millions of miles of mountains. The 2 of them were also in a remote place in Dongxing Divine Continent. There were no signs of human habitation here. The vast mountains stretched for tens of millions of miles. However, the 2 of them fought until the mountains and rivers were destroyed. Wherever they passed, the people in the earth immortal realm would die. Tiandu country. The country was vast and located in the plains. It was a country established by the Wuhua sect. Under the leadership of the Wuhua sect, the mortals here worshipped Taoism. The leader of the Wuhua sect was one of the immortals and was respected as the supreme immortal Wuhua. He enjoyed the incense of his followers day and night. It could be said that he was very carefree. However, on this day, 2 beams of immortal light fought from the sky to the ground. When the Tai immortal light fell, more than half of Tiandu's city was turned into dust. Countless mortals died tragically in the city. The 4 disciples of Supreme Immortal Wuhua were all in the tribulation passing stage. They were cultivating in seclusion in the Dao Palace. However, when they heard the earth-shattering sound, the 4 of them opened their eyes in shock. They all rushed into the sky, thinking that demons had invaded. However, when the 4 of them saw the battle between Yi Xian and Yuan Ling in the sky, their faces turned deathly pale. Even their teeth were chattering. Which 2 immortals are so angry actually fighting in the sky above my Tiandu city? The eldest disciple of Wuhua trembled as he spoke. Exalted immortals, please calm your anger. Please take pity on us mortals. The second disciple of the 5 flowers soared into the sky and bowed towards Yi Xian and Yuan Ling from afar. He hoped that the 2 of them would stop here. Otherwise, the entire sky capital would be destroyed by the 2 of them. At this moment, Yuan Ling had already gone berserk. His palms and fingers moved up and down as he madly brandished immortal arts, but he was still unable to take down Yi Xian. Moreover, in the past 6 months, the 2 of them had fought through thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Yi Xian's immortal arts were becoming more and more proficient and had already faintly suppressed Yuan Ling. At this moment, Yuan Ling's mood was simply furious to the extreme. Where did this ant come from? Die for me! A beam of immortal light shot out. The second disciple of Wuhua did not even have time to scream before his spirit and soul were destroyed. This made the other 3 turn pale. They did not dare to disturb the battle between the 2 of them. Mortals below, listen up. This is Yuan Mo who caused chaos in the earth immortal realm 10,000 years ago. Why don't you quickly inform the heavenly soldiers and generals to capture this demon? Yi Xian's eyes turned and a beam of Tai immortal light blasted out, causing Yuan Mo to stagger and blood to flow from the corners of his mouth. However, his words fell into the ears of the other 3. Yuan Mo. The first disciple of Wuhua screamed in horror as he stared at Yuan Ling in the sky. When he saw Yuan Ling's face, his entire body trembled silently. Quickly inform Master, that Yuan Mo is still alive. But Master is going to the Heaven Realm to participate in the Queen Mother of the West's Peach Blossom Banquet. Yuan Imo has appeared. This matter cannot be delayed. I will personally make a trip to the Heaven Realm. The first disciple of Wu Hua screamed in horror. He immediately turned into an auspicious cloud and shot toward the 33rd heaven. At this moment, the battle between Yi Xian and Yuan Imo became more and more violent. When their Tai immortal lights spilled out, the heaven capital was reduced to debris. They once again fought in the sky and gradually disappeared into the distance. However, this great battle gradually attracted the attention of the beings in the Earth Immortal realm. The sun and moon alternated and the mountains and rivers collapsed. The two of them fought all the way without the slightest pause. Yuan Ling's face was as gloomy as water. He already showed signs of wanting to escape. Under the firmament, in the clouds, the two of them faced each other across the sky. Yuan Ling growled hatefully, "Little bastard, you despicable villain. Don't be delusional if you want to attract the immortals and gods to kill me. Old dog, if I don't kill you today, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart." Yi Xian laughed sinisterly. Yuan Ling firmly imprinted Yi Xian's face into his eyes. At this time, he had also completely calmed down. Since he was already helpless against Yi Xian, if he continued to be entangled with him, when the immortals and gods of the heavens arrived, he would be attacked from both front and rear. "Little bastard, I will never let you go." Without another word, Yuan Ling turned and fled into the distance. Obviously, he did not want to be entangled with Yi Xian anymore. Unfortunately, if Yuan Ling could let Yi Xian go, how could Yi Xian let him go? If he did not kill Yuan Ling, how could Yi Xian give up? This was his greatest threat. "Want to leave? Do you think you can?" Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner and the souls of the dead roared out. The Tai immortal light trapped heaven and earth as they madly attacked Yuan Ling. Damn it! In the face of Yi Xian's killing technique, Yuan Ling could only desperately resist. However, in the continuous escape, he was still hit by Yi Xian's soul-subduing banner several times. He spat out blood, but he did not dare to continue fighting with Yi Xian. He desperately fled into the distance. A cruel pursuit was in progress. Yi Xian had completely let go of himself. The Tai immortal light swept across heaven and earth. He only wanted to kill Yuan Ling. He chased from the sky to the ground, and then from the ground to the sky. Yuan Ling was completely like a stray dog running for his life. However, the shame and anger in his heart made him so angry that his chest was about to explode. There were two things to talk about. The eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect rode an auspicious cloud into the sky. As soon as he arrived at the border between the Earth Immortal realm and the Heaven realm, the strong wind, thunder, and fire rushed toward him. He was only in the Tribulation realm and had not become an immortal. How could he cross the strong wind, thunder, and fire and enter the Heaven realm? However, the eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect was not worried. He quickly took out the fire-blocking shield and covered himself in it. Then, he hurriedly stepped into the strong wind, thunder, and fire and rushed toward the Heaven realm. Several hours later, the eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect finally arrived at the border of the Heaven realm. As far as the eye could see, celestial clouds stretched as far as the eye could see, and celestial sounds could be heard. Countless huge islands were floating in the celestial clouds, and countless pavilions and palaces rose from the ground on the celestial islands. It was a magnificent sight. The eldest disciple of the Five Flowers sect was also stunned by the beautiful scenery of the Heaven realm. However, he came to his senses in the blink of an eye. He did not dare to delay and continued to rush toward the Heaven Palace. Chapter 239. Half an hour passed. The celestial music of the nine heavens rang out as a 1,000-foot heavenly gate appeared in the distance. Two golden pillars seemed to have stood there since ancient times, and a golden plaque was displayed on the two pillars. Celestial light rippled and auspicious chi filled the air. There were even images of red-crowned cranes and spiritual birds looming in the heavenly gate. 3 words were written on the plaque: Southern Heavenly Gate. In front of the southern heavenly gate, there were 4 great divine generals standing here. Golden light shone resplendently, immortal energy overflowing into the heavens. One of them held a precious sword, one held a precious umbrella, one held a pipa, and there was even one with a flood dragon coiled around his arm. These 4 were the 4 heavenly kings who guarded the southern heavenly gate. They were Eastern Heavenly King Dhritarashtra, Southern Heavenly King Xingzhang, Western Heavenly King Guangmu, and Northern Heavenly King Duowen. How dare you, mortal! You haven't become an immortal yet. How dare you barge into the heavenly realm? Eastern Heavenly King Dhritarashtra rebuked sternly. The golden light around him surged as if he would kill the 5 flower great disciples in the next moment. Looking at the Heavenly King Dhritarashtra's immortal aura, the 5 flower great disciples trembled and bowed. I am the disciple of immortal 5 flower. How dare I barge into the heavenly palace? It's just that primogenitor demon has appeared and destroyed our heavenly capital. I have specially come to report this. What? Primogenitor demon is still alive? How is that possible? When the 5 flower great disciples' words fell, the 4 heavenly kings were shocked and their faces turned pale. The chaos of primogenitor demon 10,000 years ago had caused many immortals and gods to fall. The 4 heavenly kings had personally experienced this battle. How could they not know how terrifying primogenitor demon was? No, if primogenitor demon is still alive, how could you have survived from him? Heavenly King Guangmu rebuked angrily. Heavenly King, you may not know this, but there was a Taoist who fought primogenitor demon and broke through thousands of miles of heaven and earth. If it wasn't for this Taoist's mysterious immortal technique that suppressed primogenitor demon wouldn't have let me go, the 5 flower great disciples reported truthfully. Hiss! The 4 heavenly kings gasped. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Primogenitor Mo was a primordial unity golden immortal back then. Even if the 4 of them attacked him together, they were no match for him. However, according to the eldest disciple of Wuhua, this mysterious Taoist could suppress primogenitor Mo. Could this Taoist also be a primordial unity golden immortal? This is definitely not something we can decide. We should quickly report to the Jade Emperor. Come with me. Dhritarashtra did not dare to delay. He immediately rode out of the auspicious cloud and pulled the 5 magnificent's grand disciples towards the heavenly palace. There were a total of 33 levels in the heavenly palace. From bottom to top, they were the Chaotic Clouds Palace, Sunflower Water Palace, 5 Thunder Palace, Bliss Palace. The Bullfighting Palace was located at the center. It was the Tao Arena of the Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the 3 realms. Below the Jade Emperor, there were 3 great emperors in the heavenly palace. Big Dipper Palace, Zhenwu Demon Sweeping Emperor, Gaochen Palace, Emperor Gaochen, Ziwei Palace, Emperor Ziwei. These 3 great emperors had been legendary for a long time. Whether it was their cultivation or identity, they were extremely noble. They seemed to be slightly inferior to the Jade Emperor, but they were not controlled by the heavenly realm. Very few people had seen these 3 great emperors. They were only in name in the heavenly realm. Dhritarashtra rode the immortal cloud and hurried towards the jade pool. Because today was the Queen Mother of the West's Peach Blossom Banquet, the Jade Emperor was personally accompanying her. There were also many immortals beside him. It could be said to be a grand banquet in the heavenly realm. Soon. Outside the jade pool, the immortal officials announced that Dhritarashtra and the 5 magnificent's grand disciples quickly entered the jade pool. They saw the immortals standing beside the jade pool, looking at Dhritarashtra and the Queen Mother of the West with puzzled expressions. In the center of the jade pool, the Jade Emperor, the supreme of the 3 realms, was wearing a green robe. Beside him was the Queen Mother of the West. He was also looking at Dhritarashtra in confusion. He did not know why he had hurried here. Jade Emperor, something bad has happened. Primogenitor Mo has appeared. Dhritarashtra knelt down. As his words fell, the entire jade pool fell silent. Then, there was an uproar among the immortals. How dare you, Dhritarashtra? How dare you deceive the public with your lies? 10,000 years ago, primogenitor Mo was severely injured and was on the verge of death. He was already suppressed in the reverse passage. We even sealed him. How could he still be alive? Zhang Tianchi stepped out and shouted angrily at Dhritarashtra. Humph! Suddenly, pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing stepped out from the crowd. He held the exquisite pagoda in his hands and bowed to the Jade Emperor. Dhritarashtra has always been careful with his words and actions. He would never deceive the public with his lies. Your Majesty, please understand. The Jade Emperor, the supreme of the three realms. He nodded slowly and said softly, Dhritarashtra, you said that primogenitor Mo has appeared. Do you have any proof? Dhritarashtra did not dare to be negligent. He directly pushed out the five-splendor great disciple, who also said in a trembling voice, I am the disciple of Immortal Five Splendor. I was cultivating in Tiandu City, hoping to become an immortal as soon as possible. But today, there was a sudden explosion in the sky. Millions of mortals in Tiandu City died tragically. My brothers and I went to check it out, but we saw primogenitor Mo and a Taoist fighting fiercely, as the Five-Splendor Great Immortal Five Splendor quickly stepped out and knelt before the Jade Emperor. He said sadly, this person is indeed my disciple. He would never dare to speak nonsense. Your Majesty, please send troops to kill primogenitor Mo. 10,000 years ago, primogenitor Mo was a primordial unity golden immortal. Now that he has appeared again, he will definitely cause chaos in the three realms. But who is this Taoist? How can he be on par with him? The Jade Emperor asked doubtfully. Not only did the Jade Emperor have this question, but the immortals present also had the same question. However, before the Jade Emperor could ask again, an extremely terrifying explosion came from afar. Your Majesty, this is bad. Two people from the lower realm are fighting to the heavenly palace. An immortal official reported in a trembling voice. However, before he could finish, an extremely terrifying scene appeared. Heavenly Realm, 33rd Heaven. Yuan Ling was bathed in blood. He violently waved the bronze Immortal Sutra in his hand, rippling with terrifying primordial unity immortal light. He fled for his life like a stray dog. Yi Xian chased Yuan Ling from the first heaven to the 33rd heaven with the billion soul subduing banner in his hand. Along the way, countless palaces and pavilions were destroyed, and a large number of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals died tragically in the aftermath of their power. Primogenitor Mo, you have brought disaster to the three realms. Even if my soul is shattered today, I will still kill you here. In the sky above the jade pool, Yi Xian roared loudly. The billion soul subduing banner danced in the sky, and the heaven-splitting immortal light made Yuan Ling stagger. His righteous voice also entered the ears of the immortals. Yi Xian, you little bastard! Yuan Ling roared in grief and indignation. He desperately resisted Yi Xian's immortal magic, but he could not say anything. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his grievances. How could Yuan Ling have come to the heavenly palace willingly? He had been driven here by Yi Xian, and there was no way for him to escape. He had only taken over primogenitor Mo's body. Although he had the cultivation of a primordial unity mystic immortal, Yi Xian had stepped into the primordial unity mystic immortal realm and mastered all his spells. He was no longer a match for Yi Xian. They fought from the ground to the sky, and from the sky to the 33rd heaven. Thousands of miles of mountains and rivers collapsed. Along the way, Yuan Ling was filled with grief and indignation, but there was nothing he could do. It really is primogenitor Mo. An immortal official exclaimed in horror. Who exactly is this Taoist? How could he suppress primogenitor Mo to this extent? A golden immortal asked in horror. In the blink of an eye, primogenitor Mo fled from the sky above the jade pool. Yi Xian only hurriedly glanced at the immortals below. When he saw the Jade Emperor, his eyes narrowed slightly, and then he continued to chase after primogenitor Mo. Everyone, who will help that Taoist subdue this demon? The Jade Emperor's face was calm, and his voice was slightly dignified. Chapter 240. The Celestial Court. It seemed that the Jade Emperor was in charge of the three realms, but the immortals were not loyal to him. Every Dao was different and had their own thoughts. There was no need to go into detail here. However, since the Jade Emperor had spoken, someone naturally had to subdue the demon. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a joke if the huge heavenly realm asked an unknown Taoist to subdue the essence demon? I'm willing to lead the 28 lunar mansions and 30,000 heavenly soldiers to subdue this demon. Pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing bowed. Alright, I'll send Lu Ding and Lu Jia under your command. You must subdue this demon. Don't let others look down on the reputation of the heavenly realm. The Jade Emperor nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The immortal cloud war drum rumbled in the hands of the golden-armored soldiers. Li Jing led the 28 lunar mansions and gathered 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. There were also Lu Ding and Lu Jia beside him. They rose a golden cloud that covered the sky and chased after Yi Xian and the essence demon. In the jade pool, immortal clouds lingered and golden light shone brightly. The Star Lord on duty took out the heavenly mirror and injected an immortal art into it. Immediately, the heavenly mirror shone brightly and reflected the scene of Yi Xian and Yuan Ling fighting in the distance. Essence demon, don't go. Yi Xian shook the soul-suppressing banner, and the void within 5,000 kilometers collapsed. It also hit Yuan Ling's back fiercely, causing Yuan Ling to go crazy with hatred. However, he did not dare to say anything and ran for his life. Fellow Taoist, Li Jing is here to help you. Golden light filled the sky and immortal clouds rolled. Amidst the rumbling of the war drums, Li Jing came over with the exquisite pagoda in his hand. The 28 lunar mansions beside him shone with immortal light, and all kinds of Dharma treasures that had never been heard of before surged out. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes turned. He waved his hand and released 100,000 feet of immortal light, trapping the world. He immediately retreated, leaving the battlefield to Li Jing and the others. Obviously, Yi Xian was not that stupid. He would really risk his life to kill Yuan Ling. Li Jing and the others would risk their lives to fight Yuan Ling. This was something that he was very happy to see. Although Li Jing was slightly stunned by Yi Xian's retreat, he did not say much. He only thought that the Taoist had already injured his vitality due to the battle with the Essence Devil. It was understandable for him to retreat. Set up the heavenly cycle of 28 mansions formation. The 28 lunar mansions shone brightly, and the Dharma treasures in their hands emitted thousands of auspicious auras. The starlight that fell from the sky turned into an immortal formation that covered the sky, instantly trapping Essence Demon in the center. The 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals held their golden halberds and looked at Essence Demon solemnly. Go! The exquisite pagoda flew out from Li Jing's hand, and then it expanded in the wind to become 30,000 meters in size. It carried an extremely terrifying immortal light as it descended towards Yuan Ling. At the same time, the 28 lunar mansions and the 30,000 heavenly soldiers activated the lunar mansion's grand array. The heavenly light in the sky turned into demon-destroying heavenly thunder and struck towards Yuan Ling violently. At this moment, Yuan Ling's expression was sinister, and his body was stained with blood. Faced with the overwhelming immortal light and Dharma treasures, a solemn look flashed across his eyes. He was only borrowing the body of Essence Demon now, and his cultivation was only at the Grand Unity Mystic Immortal level. How could he resist the killing formation set up by Li Jing and the 28 lunar mansions? Moreover, Yi Xian was eyeing him covetously from the side and looked like he was about to launch a sneak attack at any time. Yuan Ling stared at Yi Xian and saw him smiling sinisterly at him. This made him even more furious, and he even had an impulse to summon the Dharma body that he had hidden in the Earth Immortal world and directly kill all these ants and Yi Xian in front of him. However, Yuan Ling knew that he could not do that. If he really did so, he was afraid that the moment he killed these ants, the three pure ones Tao ancestors of the 33 heavens beyond heaven would definitely obliterate his divine soul. He simply could not bear such a price. Clang! Yuan Ling waved the bronze Immortal Sutra, and the grand unity immortal light shot out and directly blasted the exquisite pagoda away. This also made Li Jing's expression change, and he formed a spell with both hands, once again controlling the exquisite pagoda to attack Essence Demon. After all, Li Jing's cultivation was at the grand unity mystic immortal level, and he was in charge of the Heaven Realm army after the apotheosis. He was conferred the title of pagoda-bearing Heavenly King. At this moment, Essence Demon's cultivation was not at the grand unity golden immortal level of the past, so how could he be at a disadvantage? After all, he dared to ask for permission to fight because he could see that Essence Demon's cultivation was not at the grand unity golden immortal level of the past. Moreover, they were both grand unity mystic immortals, but the mysterious Taoist could suppress Essence Demon. How could he, the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, be inferior to that Taoist? Unfortunately, Li Jing did not know that Yi Xian was able to suppress Yuan Ling because both of them practiced the Immortal Sutra. Moreover, Yi Xian had mastered the Forbidden Chapter and the Forbidden Dharma artifact, the Billion Soul Suppressing Banner. Naturally, he had formed a great suppression over Yuan Ling. Although Li Jing was also a grand unity mystic immortal, how could his seven-orifice exquisite pagoda compare to Yuan Ling's Bronze Sutra? Moreover, the Immortal Sutra was mysterious and unfathomable. If Li Jing did not have the help of the 28 mansions, he would have been defeated by Yuan Ling long ago. The 28 mansions had already seen that Li Jing was at a disadvantage in the Battle of Dharma Treasures, and they were not surprised. After all, in the distant past, whether it was Erlang Xiancheng or that lawless monkey, they had all beaten Li Jing to a pulp. Even his son, Neza, who was at odds with him, could beat Li Jing with one hand. Li Jing's defeat did not surprise the 28 mansions at all. However, they could not just watch the show. Naturally, they had to kill Essence Demon together, and only then could they return to report to the Jade Emperor. Slay the demon. The 28 mansions activated the formation, and thousands of starlight and auspicious chi suddenly fell. All kinds of immortal Dharma treasures surged out, and 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals charged towards Yuan Ling in a frenzy. A great battle began. Yuan Ling shook the Bronze Sutra and fought with Li Jing and the others to a standstill. He even fled into the distance from time to time. This battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The blood of 10,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals dyed the sky red, and the 28 mansions were all seriously injured. Apart from Li Jing, who was a grand unity mystic immortal and could barely resist Yuan Ling, the others were constantly retreating, and Yuan Ling was about to break out of the encirclement. This scene was very well presented in the heavenly mirror, and it also made the immortals in the Jade Pool have different expressions. Even the Jade Emperor, the supreme of the 3 realms, looked a little pale. The pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, who led the 28 mansions and 30,000 heavenly soldiers, was actually defeated by Essence Demon. He was not even as good as a mysterious Taoist. This was simply a disgrace to the Celestial Court and the Jade Emperor. Ladies and gentlemen, who can slay this demon? The Jade Emperor finally could not sit still, and there was some anger in his voice. Unfortunately, no one in the Jade Pool stood out, and this made the Jade Emperor's face even gloomier. Perhaps some people would ask, is there no one who can subdue Essence Demon, who is only a grand unity mystic immortal, in the 33 heavens of the Heaven Realm? In fact, the strength of the Heaven Realm was unimaginably terrifying. However, every immortal had their own thoughts, and some immortals even wanted to see the Jade Emperor make a fool of himself. For example, the son of Li Jing, Neza, the great divinity of the 3 jars of the sea, could kill Yuan Mo by himself. Then there was Erlang, the holy lord of the Guanjiang estuary, who could easily kill a primordial unity mystic immortal. Chapter 241. Even if he was among the immortals in the Jade Pool, Yuan Ling would have no choice but to surrender if Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South attacked. Moreover, he had 3 stars, Fortune, Lushou, and Longevity, and could suppress Primordial Demon with just a drop of a coin. However, although the Jade Emperor seemed to be in charge of the heaven, earth, and mortal realms, each immortal sect was different and had different thoughts. It was not that simple, and no one wanted to be the first one to stand out. For example, in the distant past, the lawless monkey almost destroyed the entire heavenly court when he was merely a primordial unity Xian immortal. He even boasted that the Jade Emperor would take turns to be the next emperor, and today, he would come to his house. Was there no immortal who could subdue that monkey? No, it was not that there were no immortals who could subdue that monkey. It was just that the monkey had a powerful background and they could not afford to offend him. One had to know that the monkey was formed from the five-colored divine stone, and the five-colored divine stone was something that goddess Nuwa had left behind in the earth immortal realm. This monkey was also the disciple of Patriarch Bodhi. Who could afford to offend it? After the monkey was conferred the title of Fighting Immortal Buddha, his cultivation had reached an unimaginable level in the past tens of thousands of years. No one in the three realms dared to offend the orthodoxy of Mount Huagua alone. Although the topic was a little off-topic, it also proved that immortals only cared about their own business. They were deeply afraid of making a mistake and falling into karma. If they died, wouldn't the loss outweigh the gain? Look, that Taoist is attacking. When the jade pool fell into silence, Yi Xian finally attacked Yuan Ling in the heaven mirror. At this moment, the 30,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were retreating in defeat. Li Jing was also struggling to resist. Yi Xian had wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, but he did not expect these immortals to be so weak. Seeing that Yuan Ling was about to break free, how could Yi Xian let him escape so easily? Die! Yi Xian waved the soul-subduing banner, and the grand unity immortal light descended. He once again engaged in a fierce battle with Yuan Ling. Quick, help this Taoist kill primordial devil. Li Jing's spirit was roused as he hurriedly called for the 28 lunar mansions to cooperate with Yi Xian to attack Yuan Ling once again. Rumble. The celestial light split the sky, and the firmament cracked. This battle shook the 33 heavens. If it were not for the existence of the heaven-protecting formation in the heaven realm, the power of the two primordial unity Xian immortals alone would have been enough to turn the void thousands of miles into ashes. Soul Destruction Guide. Immortal Transformation Art. The Bronze Celestial Sutra and the soul-suppressing banner collided. It was as if two primordial divine mountains were colliding. The resplendent and terrifying celestial light covered the two of them, and the aftershock of the power sent Li Jing and the 28 mansions flying. The celestial light was so dazzling that they couldn't see clearly what was happening. The Jade Lake's celestial beings stared at the divine mirror, wondering what the outcome of this battle would be. At this moment, in the turbulent celestial light, Yi Xian and Yuan Ling were covered. Yuan Ling laughed sinisterly and said in a cold and strange voice, Yi Xian, I can tell you that the earth immortal realm is very big, and there are many things that you can't imagine. Do you really think that the celestial beings of the heaven realm can represent the entire earth immortal realm? I can tell you that Yuan Ling is just an imprint of my primordial spirit. If my real body appeared here, the so-called celestial beings of the heaven realm would have to respectfully address me as patriarch. If I wasn't afraid of attracting the attention of the three pure ones, how could I allow you to be so presumptuous in front of me? I'll let you win by half a move today, but don't be too proud. The game of heaven and earth has just begun, and you and I will meet again in the future. Yuan Ling smiled coldly as a speck of celestial light rippled out from primordial devil's body. It quickly merged into the void and completely disappeared before Yi Xian's eyes. The celestial clouds in the 9 heavens rumbled. Flowers fell from the sky, and golden lotuses bloomed on the ground. In a vast and boundless Tao field, a green-robed Taoist sat cross-legged above the 9 heavens, emitting unimaginable celestial light. His body was hazy and illusory, but the sound of the great Tao kept coming from his mouth. Below the Taoist, the celestial beings of heaven and earth were listening to the Taoist's teachings. There were also 8 demon kings kowtowing respectfully, and the golden-winged rock prostrating its wings to express its respect for the Taoist. All of a sudden, a beam of celestial light streaked across the void and merged into the Taoist's glabella. His aura stopped, and his face turned slightly red. A trace of golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, but it quickly disappeared. However, the scripture in his mouth also stopped abruptly, waking the celestial beings and demon kings below from their Tao voices. The 3,000-year meeting has passed. All of you can leave, the Taoist said calmly. Thank you, Patriarch. The celestial beings retreated, and the demon kings kowtowed. The golden-winged roc spread its wings and soared 90,000 kilometers into the sky, leaving the Tao field. Yi Xian, my good disciple, when we meet again, will you be able to recognize me? The Taoist spoke gently, but his voice contained a cold and stern intent. He slowly disappeared above the 9 heavens. The Taoist's external incarnation used the heaven evasion technique to escape, which caused the Taoist's heart and soul to be severely injured. However, the Taoist's greatest unwillingness was to be destroyed by Yi Xian after 10,000 years of planning. The heaven realm, the 33 heavens. Yi Xian stared fixedly at the essence demon's body, emitting an aura that kept people away. No one knew what he was thinking. Congratulations, fellow Taoist, for killing the essence demon. This is a great merit. His Majesty will definitely reward you handsomely. Li Jing laughed loudly as he walked over. Behind him were the 28 lunar mansions, and they were greeting Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond at all. He strolled to the essence demon's body, picked up the bronze scripture that had fallen to the ground, and then quickly put it into the Sumera space. He became even more silent. Yi Xian had always thought that Yuan Ling was a remnant soul that existed in the world. As long as he destroyed his remnant soul, he would be able to sit back and relax. However, judging from Yuan Ling's words and the spell he used to escape, he was not a remnant soul at all. Instead, he was the external incarnation of some mighty figure from the Earth Immortal world. An invisible shadow shrouded Yi Xian's mind, and the pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down, and his expression gradually became calm. Yes, if Yuan Ling was only a remnant soul, how could he have cultivated the essence demon, a primordial unity golden immortal, and even destroyed his soul 10,000 years ago? Yi Xian did not know who Yuan Ling's real body was, but he could tell from Yuan Ling's words that he must be an extremely important figure in the Earth Immortal world. Even the immortals of the heaven realm had to address him as patriarch. However, Yi Xian could only put this matter aside now, because his appearance had already attracted the attention of the immortals of the heaven realm. What he had to do next was to deal with them. Immortal of the lower realm, His Majesty summons you to the Lingxiao Hall for an audience. An immortal official came over on a cloud, conveying the decree of the Jade Emperor, the ruler of the 3 realms. Fellow Taoist, killing the essence demon is a great merit. His Majesty will definitely reward you. Let's go quickly. Don't let His Majesty wait too long. The golden-armored soldier had already carried the essence demon's body toward the Lingxiao Hall. Li Jing also greeted Yi Xian, obviously intending to befriend Yi Xian. Chapter 242. After all, although there were many immortals in the heaven realm, there were not many who could really work for the Jade Emperor. Although Yi Xian's background was unknown, he had the cultivation of a grand unity mystic immortal. Even the primordial demon was killed by him. If this person could be used by the Jade Emperor, it would be a great thing. The Jade Emperor. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Li Jing's expression changed and he hurriedly reminded him, fellow Taoist, although you killed the primordial demon, His Majesty is the master of the 3 realms. When you arrive at the Lingxiao Hall, you have to perform the etiquette of a subject. You must not call the Jade Emperor directly. This is a crime of great disrespect. Fellow Taoist, you have to remember. After saying that, Li Jing rode a magic cloud and brought Yi Xian all the way to the Lingxiao Hall. During this journey, he kept inquiring about Yi Xian's background, but Yi Xian evaded him. Yi Xian could not tell him that he was not from the Earth Immortal world, but from the human world. He was afraid that if this matter were to spread, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. At the same time, in the Lingxiao Hall of the Bullfighting Palace, the sky was boundless, and the stars filled the sky. There was even a faint glow of auspicious qi in the Lingxiao Hall. The Jade Emperor was sitting upright in a golden imperial robe. Below him stood many immortal officials and divine generals. Everyone's faces were solemn and respectful. Yi Xian, an immortal from the lower realm, is here to see the Jade Emperor. With the immortal officials' shout, Yi Xian entered the Lingshao Hall under Li Jing's lead. However, when Yi Xian saw the immortals present, his pupils constricted slightly, and his heart twitched violently. Then, he regained his composure, and his expression was even more indifferent. It was no wonder that Yi Xian was shocked, because he realized that among the immortals present, there were a few people with extremely powerful cultivation bases. Even though he was a grand unity mystic immortal, he was slightly inferior. However, Yi Xian also noticed a problem. These powerful immortals all had their eyes closed, as if nothing could disturb their state of mind. It seems that the heaven realm is not an iron bucket. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed as he sneered in his heart. An extremely bold idea arose in his mind. Is that Yi Xian, the immortal from the lower realm who killed Primordial Devil? The Jade Emperor was high and mighty. Although his appearance was handsome and refined, one would feel a sense of awe when looking at him. He was speaking to Yi Xian in a dignified manner. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. A hint of fear flashed through his eyes because he couldn't see through the Jade Emperor's cultivation. Yi Xian only glanced at the Jade Emperor, who was in charge of the three realms, and he felt that the Jade Emperor was unfathomable. I am Yi Xian. Yi Xian's Taoist connotation was full. He bowed in a Taoist way, appearing neither servile nor overbearing. He had the charm of an immortal who transcended the three realms and the five elements. How dare you? You are just an itinerant immortal from the lower realm. Why don't you kneel before His Majesty after entering the heavenly palace? An immortal official jumped out and shouted angrily at Yi Xian. Your Majesty, this itinerant immortal from the lower realm has no manners. He treats the laws of heaven as nothing. He should be banished to the path of the beast and reincarnated for 10 lives. Only then can his crime of disrespecting the heavens be eliminated. Fire Lord had a bad temper. Although he only had the cultivation of a golden immortal, he looked down on itinerant immortals from the lower realm the most. He thought that they were disrespectful to the heavens and earth and were just a motley crew. This made him furious. Fire Lord could not be blamed for targeting Yi Xian. Tens of thousands of years ago, ever since the monkey broke through the heavenly palace, the prestige of the celestial court plummeted. Many demon kings from the earth immortal realm treated the heavenly realm as nothing. Many itinerant immortals even disdained to associate themselves with the immortals and gods from the heavenly realm. This situation was extremely serious. This was also the reason why Fire Lord targeted Yi Xian. Fire Lord was not the only one who had such thoughts. Julingshan stepped out from the crowd and said with a loud voice, Your Majesty has always been fair in rewarding and punishing. Although this itinerant immortal from the lower realm has the merit of eliminating the devil, he has also committed the crime of disrespecting the heavens. Although he should be rewarded for his meritorious service, he should go to the immortal slaying platform for his crime of disrespecting the heavens. The immortals watched this scene indifferently. Fire Lord and Julingshan were both the Jade Emperor's people. Obviously, these two wanted to intimidate Yi Xian and show the prestige of the celestial court. They were also flattering the Jade Emperor in disguise. Beyond the three realms, not in the five elements, immortal and indestructible, not filthy and not clean. I was born at the beginning of the world. When I attained the Tao in the untainted land, I saw Tao ancestor Hongjun fusing with the Tao. I also saw the three pure ones establishing a sect and becoming a saint. I also saw Nuwa mending the heavens and creating humans. I only know that there is the Tao, but not the heavens. Other than Tao ancestor Hongjun who fused with the Tao, who dares to call himself the heavens? If Tao ancestor Hongjun is here, I will definitely bow down. Otherwise, even the three pure ones would not dare to represent the heavens. Although the celestial court is noble, how can it represent the heavens and make me bow down? Facing the immortals of the heaven realm and the high and mighty Jade Emperor, Yi Xian wasn't afraid at all. He started to spout nonsense and even pulled on the tiger's skin, bringing out the Hongjun Dao ancestor and the three pure ones. This caused the immortals to be deathly silent. Shock flashed through their eyes as they looked at Yi Xian. Although Yi Xian had just entered the Earth Immortal world, he knew some things about the Earth Immortal world from the Moon God. The demon kings of the Earth Immortal world did not care about the celestial court at all. There were even powerful figures with remarkable abilities who called them ancestors. If he knelt down and bowed to the celestial court today, he would definitely be laughed at by the demon kings and powerful figures of the Earth Immortal world in the future. How could he establish a foothold in the Earth Immortal world? Of course, Yi Xian was full of nonsense because he was confident. He was not from the Earth Immortal world, and his name was not in the Book of Life and Death of the Underworld. His background was also not in the Celestial Court's Immortal Book. No matter how the Heaven Realm investigated him, it would be useless. They could not find out his background at all. This was also the reason why Yi Xian dared to talk nonsense. The most important reason was that Yi Xian was bragging in order to cover himself with a layer of mystery, causing the Jade Emperor and the Immortals to fear him. Of course, Yi Xian's cultivation was right there. If he really achieved Dao in the Untainted Age, how could he only have the cultivation of a Tai Xian Immortal? But it did not matter. Yi Xian naturally had another set of excuses. Back then, I felt that Dao ancestor Hongjun used his body to merge with the Dao. I once made a great vow that I would use my 7-foot body to educate the common people. However, during the Great Witch Demon Tribulation, I fought side by side with the Eastern Emperor Tai and even lost my life in the hands of the 12 ancestors of sorcery. Although a little bit of my primordial spirit survived and can only see the light of day in this world, if the Celestial Court wants to bully me because of my weak cultivation in this world, I will fight to the death even if my soul is destroyed. Yi Xian spoke without thinking. He even mentioned the Great Witch Demon Tribulation that Yi Xian was not familiar with. The immortals present were stunned. They did not know if what Yi Xian said was true or false. Rumble. Hundreds of millions of soul-subduing banners swayed out. Yi Xian's face was sorrowful. He stood in the Lingxiao Hall and looked like he was going to destroy everything. At this moment, the Lingxiao Hall was dead silent. Everyone was wondering if what Yi Xian said was true or false. They were already 80% convinced of Yi Xian's words, and all of them nodded to express their goodwill, clearly intending to befriend him. Humph! Suddenly, a cold snort was heard. Among the immortals, Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South walked out from the crowd and directly reprimanded Fire Lord and Juling Shen, 2 little immortal officials. How dare you slander Yi Dao Yu? You should go to the immortal slaying stage. Fire Lord and Juling Shen's faces turned pale when they heard Heavenly Lord Longevity's scolding. They knew that they had gotten into big trouble. They knelt down to the Jade Emperor and kept kowtowing. They said in a trembling voice, "Jade Emperor, please understand. We did such a reckless thing for the sake of the Celestial Court's prestige. Please forgive us." The Jade Emperor's mind was also in turmoil. However, the 2 immortals were his men, so he could not really punish them. This made him say gently, "Although Fire Lord and Juling Shen were wrong, you were thinking for the Celestial Court. I'll punish you 2 to reflect on your mistakes behind closed doors for 100 years. Humph. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South snorted, obviously expressing his dissatisfaction with the Jade Emperor. He turned around and walked out of the Lingxiao Palace. However, when he passed by Yi Xian, he stopped and looked back at the immortals. His voice was extremely cold. Yi Dao Yu is the ancient Daluo Jinxian. He has also experienced the great tribulation of the shamans and demons. Although his cultivation has fallen greatly in this life, he is still the most virtuous person in the Taoist lineage. If anyone in the Celestial Court dares to humiliate him, it will be the same as humiliating the Taoist lineage. Although I'm only a primordial unity golden immortal, I will not let this matter go. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South's words were not only for the immortals, but also for the Jade Emperor. This made the atmosphere in the Lingxiao Palace slightly awkward. However, no one dared to jump out and criticize Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South. This was because all the immortals present knew that Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South was not only a primordial unity golden immortal, but the orthodoxy behind him was also extremely terrifying. No one dared to provoke him unless they were tired of living. For a moment, the Lingshao Palace was silent. The Jade Emperor, who was sitting high above, did not show any shame or anger on his face. It was as if he was used to this kind of thing. However, if one looked closely, they would notice a cold murderous intent in the eyes of the Supreme of the Three Realms. Obviously, he was not as calm as he looked. Yi Daoyu, you and I are both Taoists. If you have time, you can come to my Longevity Palace for a gathering. Heavenly Lord Longevity of the South bowed to Yi Xian and showed a kind smile. Then, he flew away on his auspicious cloud. At this moment, Yi Xian's temperament was transcendent and calm. He stood in the Lingshao Palace. Although he was only a primordial unity mystic immortal, no immortal dared to slight him. The primordial demon has wreaked havoc in the three realms. His crimes are unforgivable. Today, Yi Xian, a rogue immortal of the lower realm, has contributed to the three realms by slaying the primordial demon. Yi Xian is conferred the title of Immortal and will be in charge of the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy. He will enter the Chaotic Cloud Palace and be given the title of Demon Slayer. The Jade Emperor's voice was majestic. He directly conferred the title of Yi Xian, but did not mention that Yi Xian was the ancient Daluo Jingxian. Court is dismissed. The Jade Emperor stood up from the Emperor's throne and left the Lingshao Palace. This also made the immortals stunned. They looked at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Logically speaking, Yi Xian was the ancient Daluo Jingxian. Even if Yi Xian's cultivation had fallen to that of a primordial unity mystic immortal, the title of a perfected cultivator did not match his status. What surprised the immortals the most was that the title bestowed by the Jade Emperor was too sensitive. Demon Slayer Lord Xiansheng. The Earth Immortal realm was vast and boundless. Countless famous mountains and lakes were occupied by the demon kings. These demon kings had boundless dharma powers. They discussed the Tao with bodhisattvas and were friends with the dragon kings of the four seas. They could go to heaven and earth as if they were walking on flat ground. There was also the Tongtian great demon who was on equal footing with the 10 kings of hell and could talk about the past and present with the immortals. These demon kings had disrespected the celestial court for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, the Jade Emperor had conferred the title of Demon Slayer on Yi Xian. The meaning behind this was extremely complicated. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was very calm. However, he was sneering in his heart. He did not refute the Jade Emperor's words. This was because Yi Xian knew that he'd already lied to the heavens. Although the heavenly book didn't record his roots and his lie seemed to be flawless, a lie was a lie. It couldn't withstand scrutiny or verification. Moreover, Yi Xian could feel that the Jade Emperor's cultivation was unfathomable. He did not believe his words at all. He was just a little afraid of him. That was why he had conferred him such a title. He was afraid that things would not be so simple in the future. Yi Xian was also very sensible. Since the two of them had some misgivings about each other, they could live in peace for the time being. However, Yi Xian had his own thoughts. Since the Jade Emperor had conferred him such a title, he was also considered a member of the Celestial Court. The Celestial Court was complicated. It was also a chance for Yi Xian to rise. Chapter 244. The 33rd Heaven of the Heaven Realm, Chaotic Cloud Palace. Demon Slayer, Perfected Lord Xiansheng. The Jade Emperor's decree spread throughout the three realms, but it did not cause any waves in the three realms. If there had to be some waves, it would be that Yi Xian's title was mocked by the Demon King of the Earth Immortal world. He did not take it to heart at all. As for who Yi Xian was, no one cared at all. The Chan sect and Jia sect had different orthodoxies and had more disputes. The Chan sect was established by Yuanshi Tianzuan. Most of its disciples were orthodox immortals, and they were also the mainstream of Taoism. The Jia sect was created by Tong Tian. Regardless of whether it was demons or ghosts, they were all accepted into the sect. However, after the battle of the investiture of the gods, the Jia sect was either dead or injured. A large number of people from the Jia sect were conferred as gods. It could be said that the Jia sect was declining. Investiture of the gods. It seemed noble, but it was actually an extremely miserable thing. After the death of the immortal, Yuan Ling was imprisoned by the investiture of the gods and turned into a god. His cultivation level could never increase. He could only be a god in the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. The investiture of the gods was controlled by the Jade Emperor. Although the Jia sect had declined, a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Tong Tian was one of the three pure ones, and not many people in the three realms dared to provoke the Jia sect. The Chan sect had 12 ancient golden immortals and 3 and 4 generations of disciples. They only respected Yuanshi Tianzuan and did not respect the celestial court's orders. The southern celestial Venerable Longevity was a member of the Chan sect. The Aparagodania continent was not greedy or murderous. They wholeheartedly worshipped Buddha. In the great thunderclap temple of the Spirit Mountain, all the gods and Buddhas were entrenched there. Their foundation was unimaginable. In the earth immortal world and the 4 great divine lands, countless mighty figures with remarkable abilities had set up Taoist temples. The most famous one was the immortal Zhen Yuan of the 5 Manor, who was known as the ancestor of the earth immortals. Other than the immortal Zhen Yuan, the 4 great divine lands had countless demon kings who occupied the Spirit Mountain and cave abodes. The 4 seas were under the Dragon King. The underworld. The 18 levels of hell, the 10 kings of hell, the civil and military judges, Oxhead and Horseface, the black and white impermanents, the city god of the underworld. This was a resplendent great era, an era where countless Daos competed for supremacy. It was absolutely not something that Yi Xian's mortal realm could compare to. Chaotic Cloud Palace. Yi Xian and Venus Taibai sat cross-legged facing each other. Yi Daoyu, I have to remind you that the earth immortal realm is vast and boundless. There are some people you can offend, but there are some people you can't offend. I hope Yi Daoyu takes care of yourself. Venus Taibai stood up with a smile, cupped his fists towards Yi Xian, and then rode on an auspicious cloud to leave the chaotic cloud palace. Today, Venus Taibai came here and told Yi Xian about the situation in the earth immortal realm. It seemed like she was kindly reminding Yi Xian, but in fact, she was just trying to find out more about Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian had also learned about the situation in the earth immortal realm from Venus Taibai. His expression turned grave as he fell into deep thought. Bullfighting Palace. The Jade Emperor was wearing a green Taoist robe, and Venus Taibai was bowing and reporting something to him. Your Majesty, Yi Xian's thoughts are very secretive. There are no records of him in the heavenly book. I'm afraid his background is not simple. Venus Taibai said. I govern the 3 realms for the Jade Emperor. As long as he knows his place, he will have to listen to my orders no matter which orthodoxy he belongs to. The Jade Emperor spoke calmly, with the dignity of a supreme ruler of the 3 realms. Your Majesty, Yi Xian used the demonic soul subduing banner in his battle with primordial demon. Although he has restrained his aura, the murderous aura surrounding him is definitely not good. I'm just worried that the same thing will happen again. Venus Taibai said worriedly. The Jade Emperor's breath stopped, and his originally calm face turned ashen. An image of a monkey with the mouth of a thunder god appeared in his mind, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Back then, that monkey came into being and caused the heaven realm to lose face. All of this was led by the 2 saints of the West, and I could only go with the flow. As the Jade Emperor spoke to hear, his voice paused for a moment before he said, It's just that this Yi Xian is too mysterious. Even I am unable to deduce his origins. I'm afraid that this is the method of a saint, so I can only temporarily appease him. If he knows his place and works for me, I will definitely not treat him unfairly. However, if he has no background and is ambitious, then I can only let him go to the immortal slaying platform. Others might not know the Jade Emperor's cultivation, but how could Venus Taibai not know? He bowed and said, "Your Majesty is mighty." Back then, that monkey was arrogant and domineering, and the immortals watched coldly. If your Majesty wasn't the ruler of the three realms and couldn't take action, that monkey would have been killed by your Majesty. How can this Yi Xian compare to that monkey? Naturally, he can't escape from your Majesty's control. Go, keep an eye on this person. If he doesn't know his place, report to me at any time, the Jade Emperor said calmly. Yes, your Majesty. Venus Taibai bowed and left. In the bullfighting palace, the Jade Emperor narrowed his eyes, and his body was surrounded by celestial light. He murmured in confusion, "What is the background of this Yi Xian that even my vast heaven celestial method can't figure it out?" Chaotic Cloud Palace. The palace had no roof, and the sky was filled with stars. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void and woke up from his deep thoughts. The three realms are too complicated. The so-called schemes and tricks can only be used as a means. I have to be strong myself, Yi Xian murmured to himself. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flash of light. Buzz! Yi Xian's sleeves fluttered, and the moon goddess appeared in the chaotic cloud palace in a daze. When she felt the surrounding spiritual qi, her face lit up, and her body trembled with excitement. Earth. Earth Immortal Realm. This is the Earth Immortal Realm. The moon goddess bit her lips, and her voice trembled slightly. This is not just the Earth Immortal Realm. You and I are now in the Celestial Court, Yi Xian said indifferently. The Celestial Court. The moon goddess's face turned pale. Only then did she see the stars in the sky above her head, and there was even light and auspicious air flowing in the firmament. I'm back. I'm going to find Master. As the moon goddess spoke, she walked out of the chaotic cloud palace. Clearly, she had just returned to the Earth Immortal Realm and naturally wanted to return to the moon goddess's side. Unfortunately, before the moon goddess could take a few steps, a celestial light froze her in place. The temperature in the entire chaotic cloud palace kept dropping, and a silent terror attacked the moon goddess. At this moment, the moon goddess's face froze, and she trembled as she turned to look at Yi Xian. She saw that Yi Xian's eyes were slightly narrowed, and the tiny celestial light flowed between his palms. He looked at the moon goddess with a murderous gaze. What do you want?" The moon goddess gritted her teeth, and there was panic in her eyes. Thud, thud, thud. Yi Xian walked over slowly. With every step he took, the moon goddess felt as if a mountain was constantly bombarding her heart. A look of despair flashed across her eyes. She had already guessed Yi Xian's intention. "You want to kill me? Shouldn't I kill you?" It was a simple conversation, but it was full of murderous intent. The reason was simple. Yi Xian was not from the Earth Immortal Realm. He had lied to the immortals, and the only one who knew his true identity was Yuanling and this woman. Only the dead could keep secrets. This was the reason why Yi Xian wanted to kill the moon goddess. She could be his plaything. She could be a weapon that he could use to kill people. Moreover, Yi Xian looked down on Fairy Guanghan from the bottom of his heart. In terms of cultivation, Fairy Guanghan probably wasn't that high. It was just that her beauty was unparalleled in the three realms, causing the immortals of the three realms and even the Jade Emperor to drool over her. Yi Xian had to admit that when he saw the moon goddess transform into the moon goddess, he was a little distracted. He wanted to press the moon goddess under him and ravage her. Yi Xian didn't avoid this. He was a man. Men had desires. If he didn't have them, he wouldn't be a man. But Yi Xian wouldn't bow down to a woman, even if she was the #1 fairy in the three realms. That was the difference between Yi Xian and the Jade Emperor. Right now, Yi Xian had 3 things to do. The first thing was to send the moon god to the moon palace to meet the so-called moon fairy and plan for the next step of his plan. Second, he had to go to the Longevity Immortal Palace. The Southern Longevity Immortal Palace obviously wanted to be friends with him. It was a good chance for him to increase his power. As for the third thing, he had to meet the 3,000 Celestial River Navy that he was in charge of. If even the Celestial soldiers and Celestial generals didn't recognize him, it would prove that Yi Xian was a failure. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that although his title of Demon Slayer Lord Xianqing sounded nice and seemed to be on the same level as Erlang Lord Xianqing, he was nothing in the heaven realm. Erlang Lord Xianqing was a famous war god in the world. He was also a disciple of Immortal Yuding, one of the 12 ancient golden immortals. He was also a third-generation disciple of the Chan sect. No one in the three realms dared to offend him, whether it was his cultivation or the orthodoxy behind him. Yi Xian had no roots. He had just gained a foothold in the celestial court by telling a big lie. Above him, there was 9 brilliant Star Lord and the Marshal of the Celestial River Navy. Yi Xian still had to listen to the orders of these immortals. However, Yi Xian wasn't disappointed because he also had his own trump cards and a series of plans. As long as he moved forward steadily, he would definitely be able to stand proudly at the top. Yi Xian sorted out his thoughts in the chaotic cloud palace. Then, he rode an auspicious cloud and went straight to the Longevity Immortal Palace. The Longevity Immortal Palace. The bridge of clouds was continuous and auspicious. In the sea of clouds, there were even red-crowned cranes flying and circling. At first glance, it gave people a feeling of unparalleled beauty. When Yi Xian arrived, 2 fairy children walked out of the Longevity Immortal Palace. They bowed to Yi Xian and said, "Grandmaster ordered the 2 of us to welcome Immortal Lord. Please come inside the palace for a chat." As the 2 fairy children spoke, they led the way for Yi Xian. They also allowed Yi Xian to stroll into the Longevity Immortal Palace. "Yi Daoyu, I've been waiting for you for a long time." In the Longevity Immortal Palace, the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal was sitting cross-legged on a futon. He had already prepared the immortal tea and was looking at Yi Xian with a smile. The 2 fairy children retreated and the door of the palace slowly closed. Yi Xian smiled and sat cross-legged in front of Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal. He said, "You're the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal. You're also an extraordinary figure in the heaven realm. Even the Jade Emperor has to give you some face. Today, I came uninvited. I hope you don't blame me." Yi Xian's words were sincere and the Tao around him was upright. Naturally, Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal felt very close to him. "You must be joking. You and I are both Taoists. I wonder if you're from the Chan sect or the Jie sect." Although Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal had a good impression of Yi Xian, he naturally had to treat Yi Xian differently. If Yi Xian was from the Jie sect, he naturally had to keep a certain distance from him. "I'm not from the 2 sections. Back in the untainted land, I only believed in the heavenly Tao and nature." Yi Xian had already prepared his speech. At this moment, he spoke tirelessly. "Oh?" Heavenly Lord Longevity Immortal's eyes lit up and his tone became more intimate. He said, "You've just entered the celestial court. Although you're a Tai Xian immortal, if you're willing to join the Chan sect, it's also a great merit." Chapter 246. Apparently, Changxing Tianzuan intended to rope in Yi Xian. After all, there were not many primordial unity Xian immortals in the celestial court. Changxing Tianzuan was delighted to have Yi Xian join the Chanism. Unfortunately, Yi Xian would not join the Chanism. He had just entered the Earth Immortal realm and did not fully understand the situation there. Even if he wanted to join a certain orthodoxy, he would have to think carefully. Yi Xian purposely pretended to be in a difficult position, causing Heavenly Sovereign Changsheng to instantly wake up. He clearly knew that he was a bit rash. The 2 of them weren't too familiar with each other, so how could such a big matter be easily decided? "Fellow Taoist, please don't blame me. I was too reckless. But you can think about it. Fellow Taoist, you might not be familiar with the current 3 realms. Take a look at Erlangsheng and Neza, the great god of the sea. They are all third-generation disciples of the Chan school. If you join the Chan school, your future achievements will definitely not be inferior to those two junior brothers. Heavenly Lord Changsheng said smugly. Yi Xian knew that Changsheng Tianzuan was telling the truth even without the introduction. In the three realms, only Buddhism and the Chanism were powerful. The Jia sect had already fallen in the War of the Gods. There were many monster kings in the Earth Immortal realm. Each of them had a deep relationship with Buddhism and Taoism. The two sat down and discussed Taoism, no longer mentioning the orthodoxy. From Taoism to Changsheng Tiandao, both of them expressed their own opinions. They really regretted not having met each other earlier. No matter what Taoism Changsheng Tianzuan proposed, he could verify it with Yi Xian. This also made Changsheng Tianzuan more convinced that Yi Xian must be an ancient golden immortal. Otherwise, how could he discuss Taoism with him for so long? However, Changsheng Tianzuan did not know that Yi Xian cultivated the immortal scripture. This scripture was something that existed since the beginning of the world. It was easy for him to discuss it with a primordial unity golden immortal. When the two of them were discussing Tao, Heavenly Lord Changsheng introduced Yi Xian to him in a subtle way. He tried his best to get Yi Xian to join his lineage. However, Yi Xian avoided the important points and did not directly agree to his request. The Moon Palace's Moon Fairy? Unknowingly, Yi Xian had led the topic to the Fairy of Guanghan. This also stunned the longevity immortal venerable, and a wisp of infatuation flashed through his eyes. Then, he quickly came to his senses and smiled flatteringly to cover up his ugly absent-mindedness. Fairy Guanghan lives alone in the Moon Palace. Other than the Immortality Peach Banquet and the Ginseng Fruit Banquet established by the earthly immortal ancestor, I've seen her twice from afar. Fellow Taoist, may I know why you are asking about this? Heavenly Premier Longevity asked in puzzlement. Yi Xian smiled lightly and said, "It's just that I've heard that Fairy Guanghan is the #1 fairy in the three realms. However, I've never seen her before, so I'm naturally curious." Hearing Yi Xian's explanation, Heavenly Premier Longevity nodded slowly and then advised, "Fellow Taoist, listen to me. It's better if you don't meet Fairy Guanghan. In the future, when you pass by the Moon Palace, you have to take a detour." Oh? Yi Xian's eyes narrowed, and he smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean? Could it be that Fairy Guanghan can eat people?" Heavenly Premier Longevity shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Fairy Guanghan's beauty is irresistible. Although she can't eat people, some people have feelings for her. Look at the Jade Emperor, the ruler of the three realms. His cultivation is unfathomable, and he was once obsessed with him for thousands of years. Look at Sage Erlang. Every 100 years, he would bring thousands of flowers to the Moon Palace. There are also too many powerful people who yearn for Fairy Guanghan but can't get her. 10,000 years ago, Yuan Imo was a primordial unity golden immortal. He was an existence that brought chaos to the three realms. When he heard of Fairy Guanghan's beauty, he personally stepped into the Moon Palace. Guess what happened in the end?" Heavenly Premier Longevity smiled bitterly and shook his head. "What happened?" Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked. Yuan Imo was too arrogant. He thought that he could do whatever he wanted in the three realms and that the immortals of the celestial court couldn't do anything to him. In fact, he didn't know that it was because the real powerful people didn't want to suppress him. However, when he stepped into the Moon Palace, he completely angered these people. Heavenly Premier Longevity's eyes were a little dazed as he said this. He continued, "That day, the situation at the mouth of the Guanjiang River changed. The war god of the three realms, Yang Jian, wielded a three-pointed, double-edged sword and used his Dharma form to kill his way into the 33rd heaven from the Earth Immortal world. He went straight into the Moon Palace. With just one slash, he blasted Yuan Imo down to the heaven realm. He even chased him for hundreds of millions of miles and almost killed Yuan Imo. Yuan Imo fled pathetically. Although he escaped from Yang Jian, some immortals seized the opportunity when Yuan Imo was seriously injured and sealed him in the reverse passage. That's why the so-called ancient war happened. Therefore, I would like to advise fellow Daoists that if you pass by the Moon Palace in the future, you must take a detour. If you make some people unhappy, no one can save you even if you join the Chan sect. Heavenly Premier Longevity spoke tirelessly. He was also implicitly reminding Yi Xian not to have any thoughts about the Fairy of the Moon Palace. This was because Yi Xian couldn't afford to pay the price. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's expression didn't change at all in the face of Heavenly Premier Longevity's warning. No one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian had to go to the Moon Palace, and the sooner the better. This was because not only did he want to send the Moon Goddess to the Moon Palace, but he also wanted to use the Fairy of the Moon Palace to achieve some of the things he wanted to do. The two chatted for half a day. Yi Xian also stood up and bid farewell. When he left the Longevity Immortal Palace, Heavenly Premier Longevity's smile was no longer there. He looked at Yi Xian's departing figure and a thoughtful look flashed across his eyes. This Daoist is too shrewd. He's definitely not an ordinary person, Heavenly Premier Longevity muttered to himself. After leaving the Longevity Immortal Palace, Yi Xian rode a cloud and left. However, Yi Xian didn't know that an immortal official had already informed the Jade Emperor of his whereabouts. Obviously, the Jade Emperor had been watching his every word and action. In the chaotic Cloud Palace, Yi Xian sat cross-legged. His face was gloomy. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flicker of blood-red light. Yi Xian had obtained a lot of useful information from Heavenly Premier Longevity, especially about the Fairy of the Moon Palace. It was obvious that she was a taboo in the three realms. If one didn't have great abilities, they would probably suffer an unimaginable calamity if they offended her. Ha! Suddenly, Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. He muttered, "Is it a femme fatale, or a femme fatale? Let me, Yi Xian, see just how charming you, the legendary fairy Guanghan, are." Buzz! Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands. The Tai Immortal light spread out and covered his body. A forbidden secret technique was also used by Yi Xian. Primordial Spirit Void. These four simple words came from the chaotic Cloud Palace. Yi Xian merged into the void. His aura was restrained to the extreme. He then took a step forward and suddenly disappeared from the chaotic Cloud Palace. The direction he went was the forbidden area of the Celestial Court, the Moon Palace where the Fairy of the Moon Palace lived alone. Chapter 247. In the vast heaven realm, the stars were spread out. In the 33 levels of heaven, cloud bridges rose and connected to each other. There were also auspicious clouds and beautiful lights. From time to time, there were heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals patrolling. There were also many fairies carrying flower baskets in the heaven realm. Yi Xian used the primordial spirit void secret technique and walked quietly in the heaven realm. However, his aura was restrained to the extreme. He did not dare to leak out the slightest bit, as he was afraid that he would attract the attention of the powerful figures with remarkable powers. Yi Xian wasn't arrogant in the slightest. He was well aware of his own capabilities. Although he relied on his potential to become a Grand Unity Xian Immortal, just this heaven realm alone was filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. If he made a mistake, he would really be in danger of dying. The Primordial Spirit Void secret technique was a forbidden secret technique. Although this technique was extremely strange, Yi Xian was not completely confident that he could not be discovered by anyone. Fortunately, Yi Xian did not encounter any accidents along the way. He also saw the outline of the Moon Palace in the distance. The Moon Palace was also called the Moon Palace. It was the Taoist field of the Moon Fairy. However, the Moon Palace was different. It was not located in the 33 levels of heaven. Its Taoist field was built on the Moon Star. Yes, it was the Moon Star. Since ancient times, the Great Witch Demon Tribulation had shattered the primordial world and turned it into the three realms of heaven and earth. Stars filled the sky and hung in the 33 heavens of the heaven realm. The lunar star had also become the Taoist field of the ferry of Guanghan. The hazy moonlight poured down in torrents. When Yi Xian stepped on the moon star, he saw a palace made of white jade standing in the distance. There was also a Tongtian osmanthus tree rooted at the side, emitting auspicious qi and immortal light. The Moon Palace? Yi Xian's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he took a step forward and quietly appeared in front of the Guanghan Palace. The world was silent and there was no sound. There was no sound coming from the Moon Palace. Other than the Tongtian osmanthus tree swaying under the moonlight, the entire Moon Palace gave off a cold and indifferent feeling. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and restrained his aura to the extreme. He turned into a ray of light and sneaked into the Moon Palace. In the Moon Palace, the 4 jade pillars and the hazy moonlight could be seen at a glance. Celestial light crisscrossed as the moonlight scattered down. Yi Xian followed his footsteps and quietly snuck towards the back of the hall. He'd already heard the sound of water coming from the back of the hall. It had to be said that the primordial spirit void technique was very strange. Not only did it allow Yi Xian to sneak into the Moon Palace, but it also allowed him to sneak into the Moon Palace without anyone knowing. When Yi Xian stepped into the back of the hall, the scene that followed caused him to freeze on the spot. Even the aura around him became extremely chaotic. In the rear hall, there was a celestial pond that was steaming with misty water vapor. A bamboo curtain made the celestial pond faintly discernible. However, there was a woman in the celestial pond washing herself. The clear water flowed past every inch of her skin, giving off a hazy and illusory sense of beauty. It was faintly discernible and caused one's imagination to run wild. Although Yi Xian could not see the woman's face due to the bamboo curtain and the water vapor, when she raised her arms, it brought out a large expanse of spring. Her towering, exquisite, and round breasts swayed slightly, as if they could turn one into a beast and do something that would anger both men and gods. Damn it! With just one glance, Yi Xian's mind was shaken and his blood was boiling. He cursed in his heart and tried his best to suppress his turbulent emotions. Needless to say, the woman in the celestial pond was undoubtedly the Moon Palace fairy. Yi Xian happened to see the Moon Palace fairy bathing and saw a large expanse of her body. This made Yi Xian unsure if he should retreat. Who is it? All of a sudden, a cold voice came from the celestial pond. Endless moonlight covered the celestial pond and a white palace gauze covered her exquisite and mysterious body. Not a single trace of her body was exposed. Oh no! Yi Xian cursed himself for being too stupid. Just now, when his mind was in a mess, there was a flaw in the primordial spirit void mystic technique and a trace of his aura was exposed. Obviously, the Moon Palace fairy had discovered it. Rumble. The moonlight was blazing and the palace rumbled. There was only a bamboo curtain between the two of them. Fortunately, Yi Xian restrained his aura and used the primordial spirit void mystic technique to the extreme. Once again, he hid in the void. How dare you? Who dares to trespass into the Moon Palace? The Moon Palace fairy gritted her teeth and a trace of anger flashed across her face. She used an immortal technique to find Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian hurriedly left the rear hall. As his eyes moved, he quickly opened the Sumeru space and released the Moon God. He even sent a sound transmission to her. I've already sent you to the Guanghan Palace. Quickly go and meet with your master, but you must remember, if you dare to reveal my identity, I will definitely destroy your soul and kill you. The Moon Goddess appeared in the Moon Palace. Looking at the familiar surroundings, she was so excited that she could not control herself. However, she did not know what had just happened. She followed the Moon Palace fairy's voice and hurried to the back of the palace. Master, Yunyang is back, the Moon Goddess said excitedly. She had already entered the back of the palace. This made Yi Xian let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, he reacted fast enough. Otherwise, if the Moon Palace fairy knew that he had seen her body, she would fight him to the death. The cold celestial light disappeared without a trace. The Moon Palace Fairy's surprised voice came from the back of the palace. After a full 2 hours, a woman walked out from the back of the palace. In her arms, she was holding a snow-white jade rabbit. She was beautiful. She was so beautiful that she could make all living things go crazy. As she looked, it was as if the sky and earth would lose their color before her. It was just one look, but Yi Xian's eyes were a bit infatuated. His mind was in turmoil. It was as if he was going to fall into the Moon Palace Fairy's face. Although Yi Xian had seen the Moon God's manifestation of the Moon Goddess before, when he truly saw the #1 fairy of the 3 realms, he knew why the Jade Emperor and the immortals in the sky were so infatuated with her that they couldn't extricate themselves. She was cold and pure. Her face was like ice. She gave people the feeling that they could only look at her from afar and could not profane her. She was like a lonely moon. Her entire body was blooming with an icy temperament. Along with her face that could turn the 3 realms upside down, it made people feel inferior. They felt that in the 3 realms, there was no man who was good enough for this woman. At this moment, the Moon Palace Fairy was holding the jade rabbit. Her entire body was emitting a cold aura. Her face that could turn the 3 realms upside down was serious. She was sizing up Yi Xian. When she noticed Yi Xian's infatuated gaze, the Moon Palace Fairy frowned. However, she did not say anything. She had seen this kind of gaze too many times. It had changed her from the initial disgust to the current calmness. "You are very beautiful." Suddenly, the infatuation in Yi Xian's eyes was gone. His expression had returned to normal. He even praised her. Looking at Yi Xian's clear eyes, the Moon Palace Fairy was surprised. She looked at Yi Xian with a bit of curiosity. One had to know that she had seen too many men. Whether it was the ruler of the 3 realms or the celestial gods and Buddhas, very few people could regain their sanity when they looked at her. Chapter 248. However, the person in front of her had only fallen for her for a moment. His eyes quickly regained their purity, as if he had not been captivated by her beauty. How could she not be surprised? It's been so many years. Very few people have spoken to me like that. You're the 3rd. The Moon Fairy seemed to have thought of something. Her starry eyes seemed to be drifting, as if she was recalling something from the past. Who are the 2 people in front of me? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. One is an ancient god, and the other is the current ruler of the 3 realms. You're the 3rd person who dares to praise my beauty in front of me. The Moon Fairy woke up from her thoughts. Her voice was still cold and lonely. Yunyang has already told me the whole story. You were the one who killed Yuan Imo and saved her remnant soul. I owe you a favor. If you need anything in the future, you can come to the Moon Palace with this jade token. A jade token floated out of the Moon Fairy's hand and landed directly in Yi Xian's hand. Obviously, she was ordering Yi Xian to leave. Although Yi Xian made her feel that he was different from ordinary men, in the Moon Fairy's heart, no man in the 3 realms was worthy of her attention. Even Yi Xian was no exception. If Yi Xian had not sent the jade rabbit back, she would not have even seen this person. Remember, this jade token can only let me help you once. I hope you consider it carefully. Also, don't tell anyone that you came to the Moon Palace today. Otherwise, you will be killed. The Moon Fairy was cold and lonely. She wore a white palace dress, and her hair was tied into a bun. Holding the jade rabbit in her arms, she did not look at Yi Xian. She turned and walked into the inner palace. A primordial unity golden immortal. Looking at the Moon Fairy's back, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He had already discovered that the Moon Fairy's cultivation was 1 level higher than his. However, Yi Xian did not feel inferior because he believed that he would not stop at the primordial unity mystic immortal realm. As for the Moon Fairy's disregard for him, it did not affect him in the slightest. Women were nothing more than tools. Even Fairy Guanghan, the #1 fairy of the 3 realms, was no exception. Yi Xian looked down on the Jade Emperor, Yang Jian, and the others even more. If he had supreme cultivation and could crush the immortals and gods of the heavens, he would directly press this woman down and ruthlessly ravage her. He would tear apart her cold and pure outer clothes and let her know that no matter how beautiful she was just a man's plaything. Oh, love? The Jade Emperor and Yang Jian actually believe in love? This was what Yi Xian found most laughable. The fairy of Guanghan was the greatest killing weapon in his hands. He had already sent the Jade Rabbit back to her side, but he had already planted a blood contract with it. When the time was right, it would naturally be used by him. Yi Xian turned around and left. He did not linger, nor did he look at the back of the Moon Fairy. Although Yi Xian was obsessed with the Moon Fairy's appearance, he would never fall in love with this woman. This was the difference between him and the Jade Emperor and the others. In Yi Xian's belief, the number one fairy of the three realms, the ruler of the three realms, and even the three pure ones, as long as you had invincible power, you could do whatever you wanted in the three realms. Love? Impossible in this lifetime. Yi Xian did not believe in this. He only believed in his own power. If he ascended to the 9 heavens one day, the so-called number one fairy of the three realms would be ravaged by him. Who would dare to say no? Oh, noble, holy, and inviolable. In Yi Xian's eyes, these were all fake. In the face of absolute power, Yi Xian tore apart these hypocritical clothes and completely exposed his cruel and violent nature. Yi Xian admitted that he liked the Moon Fairy, but what he liked was her body and beauty. This was a man's most basic desire, but if he were to kneel and lick like the Jade Emperor, Yang Jian, and the others, then he, Yi Xian, would never be able to do it in his entire life. Suddenly, before Yi Xian could walk out of the Moon Palace, the Moon Fairy's cold voice rang out. Did my body look good just now? Yes, it was indeed beautiful, Yi Xian answered casually. His eyes suddenly focused and his aura fluctuated. Then, he rode on a cloud and disappeared from the Moon Palace. Damn it, it's really him. Within the Moon Palace, the Moon Fairy clenched her teeth as an expression of shame and indignation flashed across her face. It was obvious that she wasn't sure if it was Yi Xian, but after probing for a while, she was finally certain. However, even if she knew the truth that made her feel ashamed and indignant, she wouldn't be able to chase after Yi Xian. Unless she wanted everyone in the three realms to know that she, the Moon Fairy, had actually been spied on by someone. At that time, what would she do? But this matter was deeply etched in the Moon Fairy's heart. She would never let Yi Xian go. At the same time, in the bullfighting palace, the Jade Emperor's face was pale. He stared at the Shantian mirror and saw Yi Xian riding a cloud into the void. He had just walked out of the Moon Palace. Yi Xian. Who are you? The Jade Emperor waved his mirror image away. His aura was extremely sinister. He activated the Shantian mirror every day just to see the Moon Fairy's face and relieve the pain of missing her. But what did he see today? As soon as he activated the Shantian mirror, he saw Yi Xian walk out of the Moon Palace. Although the Jade Emperor believed that the Moon Fairy would not have an affair with Yi Xian, he could not accept a stranger entering the Moon Palace. The Jade Emperor tried his best to calm himself down. His sinister expression returned to normal, but the killing intent in his eyes could not be stopped. The 100,000 Heavenly River Navy was one of the central forces of the Celestial Court. The highest commander was Marshal Tian Peng. Under Marshal Tian Peng were the 9 luminary Star Lords. Each of them was in charge of 10,000 Heavenly River Navy. Each Star Lord was assisted by 3 immortal officials. They were in charge of 3,000 Heavenly River Navy. Demon Slayer Saint Lord. This was Yi Xian's title. He was below the 9 luminary Star Lords. However, the 9 luminary Star Lords were only true immortals, while Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal. Clearly, this small immortal officials were not worthy of Yi Xian's cultivation. However, Yi Xian did not mind. He knew that this was the Jade Emperor's check on him. As he had just entered the Earth Immortal realm, the complicated Celestial Court was his true foundation. 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals stood in the vast heavenly river. War drums rumbled as they were counting the troops above the heavenly river. The 9 star lords sat cross-legged in the void. From time to time, their immortal officials would present them with books for them to read. However, the Wood Star Lord's expression was not good. Yi Xian was one of his immortal officials. Ever since the Jade Emperor's decree conferred Yi Xian the title, Yi Xian had not taken up his post for several days. This made the Wood Star Lord furious, but he did not dare to vent his anger. After all, Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal and had killed Primogenitor Demon. It was also said that this person was the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jingxian. How could the Wood Star Lord, a mere true immortal, dare to point fingers at Yi Xian? Chapter 249. However, when he received the Jade Emperor's decree yesterday, his fear of Yi Xian completely disappeared. He wanted to establish his dignity as the glorious Wood Star Lord today. Only 2 of the 3 immortal officials are here. Why isn't Yi Xian here? The glorious Wood Star Lord's voice was as loud as a bell, immediately silencing the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy. Don't be angry, Star Lord. I've already sent someone to inform him. He must be on his way. An immortal official bowed with a flattering smile. Humph. The glorious Wood Star Lord snorted coldly and said, Yi Xian thinks that his cultivation is profound and that he has contributed to killing Essence Demon. He's actually arrogant. He's really arrogant. As soon as the glorious Wood Star Lord finished speaking, the other 8 Star Lords were stunned. They did not know what was wrong with the glorious Wood Star Lord today to target Yi Xian like this. Did he not know that Yi Xian was a Grand Unity Mystic Immortal and had been personally conferred the title of Demon Slayer by the Jade Emperor? He was even regarded as a fellow Taoist by the Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity. Where did the glorious Wood Star Lord get the guts to say such words? Just as everyone was puzzled, a beam of immortal light streaked across the sky. Yi Xian arrived on a cloud, causing the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy and the 9 brilliant Star Lord to fall silent. It's my first time in the Heaven Realm. I didn't know about the gathering of troops. Please don't blame me. Yi Xian bowed and revealed an apologetic smile. Logically speaking, although Yi Xian's immortal position was small, his cultivation was there, and he had a decree personally conferred by the Jade Emperor. Who would dare to find trouble with him over such a trivial matter? But today, when facing Yi Xian, who was 1 realm higher than him, he slapped the white jade table in front of him, pointed at Yi Xian, and scolded, "How dare you? You are one of the 3 immortal officials under my command. How dare you call us fellow Taoists? Today is an important day for the Milky Way to summon the army, but you have not shown up. You are simply looking down on me and the other celestial lords." The eyes of the other 8 Star Lords narrowed. They knew very well that the Wood Brilliant Star Lord would never be so bold. Clearly, someone was backing him up, which was why something like this had happened. The water in the Heaven Realm was too deep. The 8 Star Lords remained silent and watched quietly. Anyway, Yi Xian was not their subordinate. They also wanted to see what Wood Brilliant Star Lord was going to do. At this moment, with a smile on his face, Yi Xian did not feel angry at all. He cupped his fist and bowed to Star Lord of Wood Brilliance and said, "I'm sorry. I wonder how Star Lord will punish me." Humph. Looking at Yi Xian admitting defeat, Star Lord of Wood Brilliance felt relieved. He was really afraid that Yi Xian would not be able to control him. If that happened, he would lose all his face. But now, it seemed that although this person's cultivation was high, he was actually just a coward. This also made Star Lord of Wood Brilliance smile contemptuously. He pretended to be pretentious and said, "Yi Xian, you have offended your superior. You will be punished with 3 years of Spirit Stone supply. You will lead your 3,000 navy and train in the Milky Way day and night until the 3-year period is up." It was a show of strength, a blatant show of strength. When the 8 Star Lords and the 100,000 Milky Way Navy were guessing whether Yi Xian would fly into a rage, the next scene made them look at Yi Xian with contempt. "I accept my punishment." Yi Xian cupped his fist and did not show any anger. "TSK, I thought that this demon slayer perfected lord was an incredible person since he could kill essence demon. Now, it seems that he's just a so-so. What do you know? No matter how strong perfected Lord Ye's cultivation is, he still has to abide by the rules of heaven. Star Lord of Wood Brilliance is his direct superior. How would he dare to be too presumptuous? In my opinion, he's just a coward." Not only was he punished, but he also implicated his 3,000 navy. "Just wait and see." A great deal of discussion rang out from the navy. Although their voices were very soft, none of the 9 Star Lords present were deaf. They obviously heard it all. At this moment, the 8 Star Lords shook their heads helplessly. They could already tell that someone important was using Star Lord of Wood Brilliance to target Yi Xian. They did not dare to get involved in such a matter. Then, they dismissed their heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. They did not even dare to say goodbye to Yi Xian and left the Milky Way on an auspicious cloud. "Yi Xian, 3 years are up. I'll come and test the cultivation of your soldiers. If they don't improve at all, don't blame me for not taking into account our relationship as comrades." Star Lord of Wood Brilliance pretended to be strict with Yi Xian in a reprimanding tone. Then, he floated away on an auspicious cloud with a smug look on his face. At this moment, the 100,000 Heavenly River Navy had all dispersed. Within the surging waves of the Heavenly River, there were 3,000 Navy soldiers standing there. However, their gazes towards Yi Xian were filled with too many complicated emotions. Disdain, anger, contempt, and doubt. Originally, the 3,000 Milky Way Navy soldiers respected Yi Xian very much because Yi Xian was a grand unity mystic immortal and had personally killed the essence demon that had wreaked havoc in the 3 realms. To be able to become Yi Xian's subordinates, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, this made them feel extremely honored. However, the scene they saw today completely disappointed them. Yi Xian saw the expressions of the 3,000 Navy soldiers and naturally knew what they were thinking. However, Yi Xian did not care. This was because Yi Xian knew that the 3,000 Navy soldiers in front of him were his subordinates in the Celestial Court. He wanted to use the 3,000 Navy soldiers as a foundation to let everyone in the 3 realms know the name Yi Xian in the future. "I don't care what you think of me, but from today onwards, you are my soldiers. I only need you to act according to my will. If anyone dares to feign compliance, don't blame me for being ruthless," Yi Xian said calmly. "TCH, perfected Lord Yi, you can only show your authority to us heavenly soldiers." "That's right. How would us puny immortals dare to resist?" If you have the ability, go and show it to Star Lord Wood Brilliance. We find it laughable that he is oppressing us here." The 3,000 Celestial River Navy soldiers mocked and ridiculed. Although their voices were very soft, they were clearly noisy when gathered together. Yi Xian smiled and did not blame them. After all, these people were his subordinates. Time would slowly prove everything. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that he had to be serious when recruiting people. Even if he killed a few noisy people, it would only have the opposite effect. If he wanted to win the loyalty of the 3,000 Navy soldiers, he had to establish a true authority. Seeing that Yi Xian was not angry, the 3,000 Navy soldiers mocked and ridiculed him even more unscrupulously. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void without saying a word. After a few days, the 3,000 Navy soldiers felt bored and could only train in the Celestial River. However, no one noticed that although Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in the void, a speck of immortal light surged out from between his eyebrows and quietly disappeared into the void. Star Lord Wood Brilliance's residence. Although Star Lord Wood Brilliance was one of the 9 great Star Lords and was in charge of 10,000 Celestial River Navy soldiers, he was only in the middle of the Celestial Realm. He did not even have his own palace. Chapter 250. However, today, Wood Brilliant Star Lord's face was glowing. The fairy children and fairies in his residence, as well as some rare beasts, were all rewarded by him. Star Lord, what made you so happy today? Can you tell me about it? A fairy dressed in a red palace gauze leaned softly in Wood Brilliant Star Lord's arms. She was drawing circles on his chest with her jade-like hands, as if she was waiting for him to do whatever he wanted. Huh. Wood Brilliant Star Lord drank all the wine in his cup. His broad palm rubbed the soft part of the girl, causing her to moan in a fanciful manner. Do you know that Taoist Yi Xian? Of course. This primordial unity Xian Immortal was conferred the title of Demon Slayer Sage Lord by His Majesty. He seems to be an extraordinary person. Huh. What extraordinary person? Doesn't he still have to obey my orders? Wood Brilliant Star Lord smiled complacently and told her what had happened today. Hearing Wood Brilliant Star Lord's narration, Fairy Hong's expression changed slightly. She said, Star Lord, this Taoist is a primordial unity Xian Immortal. You have offended him today. Doesn't that mean? Wood Brilliant Star Lord smiled and said, My little sweetheart, don't worry. If I don't have some confidence, how can I offend this person? After saying that, Wood Brilliant Star Lord looked around. He lowered his voice and said complacently, Let me tell you a secret. Yesterday, His Majesty sent Venus Tai Bai to tell me to teach this Yi Xian a lesson. Obviously, this person has offended Jade Emperor. His immortal path will not last long. Moreover, Jade Emperor will certainly remember this in his heart. I am not far from a meteoric rise. Wood Brilliant Star Lord became more and more complacent. The fairy in his arms giggled. However, they did not notice that a figure was strolling toward them outside the door. I don't know if you will have a meteoric rise, but I know that today you will die without an intact corpse. Suddenly, Yi Xian's cold voice was heard. Wood Brilliant Star Lord was stunned. Then, his expression changed greatly. He said, Who is talking? Wang. The void rippled as immortal light bloomed. When Yi Xian appeared in front of the Wood Brilliant Star Monarch, he was instantly dumbfounded. It took him several dozen breaths to recover. How dare you? Without my summons, how dare you? Boom! Before Wood Brilliant Star Lord could rebuke him, Yi Xian unleashed his primordial immortal ray, which transformed into an immortal binding rope and imprisoned Wood Brilliant Star Lord. True monarchy, let's talk things over. Fellow Taoist, please don't be impulsive. The Wood Brilliant Star Lord's face was ghastly pale. This was because Yi Xian was radiating with demonic light in his eyes. When his eyes opened and closed, they were filled with viciousness and malice. Yi Xian was clearly trying to silence him. The Wood Brilliant Star Lord no longer had the time to ponder why Yi Xian would emit a demonic light. His heart was trembling, and all he wanted to do was escape this calamity. A mere true immortal dares to be impudent in front of me? Do you not know how to write the word death? Yi Xian's face was sinister as he strolled toward him. With each step he took, Wood Brilliant Star Lord's teeth were chattering. He put on a fierce front and said, Yi Daoyu, this is the Celestial Court. If you kill me, you will not be able to escape punishment. The Jade Emperor will not let you go. Die! Yi Xian did not waste any more words. The primordial immortal ray annihilated everything. It carried an extremely terrifying murderous intent and directly blew Wood Brilliant Star Lord into a cloud of blood mist. Even his spirit dissipated under the primordial immortal ray. Don't kill me. The red muslin fairy's face was pale as she knelt on the ground. She was only a concubine of Wood Brilliant Star Lord, and her cultivation was only at the early stage of the fairy immortal realm. How could she be a match for Yi Xian? She pleaded with Yi Xian in a trembling voice. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's face was sinister. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was only ruthlessness. When he struck out with his palm, the fairy's soul was scattered and she died. Revenge should not be delayed. When killing someone, one must strike at their heart and kill them all, leaving no one alive. This had always been Yi Xian's principle of doing things. There was no exception even in the earthly immortal realm. A large formation isolated Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. A silent killing was going on. A large number of fairy children and fairies were killed. The rare and exotic beasts that roamed in the residence all died tragically at the hands of Yi Xian. Buzz! Yi Xian waved his hand and dispersed the formation. When he stepped out, there was no living creature left in Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. The strong smell of blood wafted out. He had slaughtered the entire family, leaving no one alive. Yi Xian did not kill Wood Brilliant Star Lord on the spot because the 100,000 Celestial River Navy was nearby. He had just entered the Celestial Court and had not yet gained a firm foothold. It was not good for him to cause trouble. Although Yi Xian did not lose his temper on the spot, it did not mean that he was a good person. On the contrary, he was an extremely vicious person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Although he could not do anything to Wood Brilliant Star Lord on the surface, it was a piece of cake for Yi Xian to kill such a nonentity behind his back. Of course, Yi Xian's actions would certainly cause an uproar in the Celestial Court. They would also investigate the real culprit behind the scenes. Yi Xian would also become the biggest suspect. But, so what? Yi Xian's primordial spirit had left his body, and he had used the primordial spirit void secret technique. He had even slaughtered Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence, leaving no living creature behind, not even their souls. Even if the immortals of the Heaven Realm and the Jade Emperor knew that he had done it, what could they do without evidence? Moreover, Yi Xian was establishing his authority. He was telling the Jade Emperor and the immortals that he was not easy to bully. If they wanted to test him, they had to be prepared to pay a price. Yi Xian could endure silently, but he was not weak. When it was time to attack, he would not be soft-hearted. This was also the reason why he could reach where he was today. In the vast celestial river, the 3,000 Navy soldiers were still training, but everyone was indifferent. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void, motionless. He only slowly opened his eyes when a bit of his primordial spirit returned. His entire body exuded the unique transcendent temperament of an immortal. There was no longer the ferocious expression on his face when he destroyed Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence. At the same time, the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals patrolled Wood Brilliant Star Lord's residence and naturally discovered this tragic scene. They reported it to the immortals of the Celestial Court in horror until they reached the Jade Emperor. The Celestial Court was shaken, and the immortals were in an uproar. How long had it been? Tens of thousands of years. Other than the monkey who had caused havoc in the Celestial Court and committed such a bloody crime, no one had heard of any immortal dying tragically in their own residence for tens of thousands of years. Although Wood Brilliant Star Lord's immortal position was not high, he was still one of the immortals. If they did not find out who did it, it would be a slap to the Celestial Court's face. In the Lingshao Hall, the Jade Emperor's face was gloomy as he sat on the Emperor's throne. Below him stood the civil and military immortals, making the atmosphere in the entire Lingshao Hall extremely oppressive. Your Majesty, Wood Brilliant Star Lord has always been kind to others. Moreover, he is a true immortal. The person who killed him must be a primordial unity mystic immortal or above. Zhang Tianchi stepped forward and said in a loud voice. This evil demon is vicious. Not only did he destroy Wood Brilliant Star Lord's soul, but he also did not spare the living beings in his residence. If the Celestial Court does not investigate this matter strictly and catch the culprit, the dignity of the Celestial Court will be gone, an immortal official said bitterly. Humph. The Fire Lord stepped forward and knelt before the Jade Emperor. He said, Your Majesty, the Demon Slayer Lord Xiansheng is the biggest suspect in this matter. Today, the Wood Lord has just punished him. If he holds a grudge, he may be able to do such a cruel thing. How dare you? Southern Heavenly Lord Longevity Life stepped forward with the dignity of a primordial unity golden immortal. He pointed at Fire Brilliant Star Lord and said angrily, Yi Daoyu is a Taoist. How can he do such a thing? Heavenly Lord Longevity Life, I'm not saying that true Immortal Yi is the culprit. It's just that he is the most suspicious, Fire Brilliant Star Lord said righteously. In fact, the Immortals and the Jade Emperor all knew that this must be Yi Xian's doing. The Wood Brilliant Star Lord had just punished him and died miserably in his residence in less than half a day. Since Yi Xian was able to kill the Origin Devil, killing a mere Wood Brilliant Star Lord couldn't be any easier. However, the Immortals present were a little surprised. Yi Xian was too cruel. This was the Celestial Court, not the chaotic Earth Immortal Realm. Wasn't he looking for trouble by doing this? Summon Demon Slayer to the Lingxiao Palace. The Jade Emperor's dignified voice made the Immortals look at him. They could see that the Jade Emperor's eyes were filled with unquenchable anger. It was obvious that there would be a good show to watch. He rode on an auspicious cloud and shot towards the bullfighting palace's numinous sky hall. Hiss! Looking at Yi Xian's attitude, Venus Taibai's expression changed drastically. He could not help but gasp. Only then did he remember that Yi Xian was suspected to be the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jingxian. He even had the cultivation to kill essence demons. How could he be easily bullied? Perfected cultivator Yi, don't be angry. Listen to me. Venus Taibai did not dare to delay. He rode on an auspicious cloud and hurriedly chased after Yi Xian. After the two left, the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy soldiers were dumbfounded. They did not come to their senses for a long time. Is the Wood Brilliant Star Lord dead? Should be. Otherwise, why would His Majesty be so furious and order Venus Taibai to summon Perfected Cultivator Yi? I found it strange. Perfected Cultivator Yi didn't move or say anything just now. It seems that he used the primordial spirit projection technique to kill the Wood Brilliant Star Lord. Shoo, don't talk nonsense. If Perfected Cultivator Yi hears this, he won't have a good time. Tisk, if you ask me, Perfected Cultivator Yi doesn't show his true colors. There were 100,000 Navy soldiers beside him just now. Of course, he couldn't attack the Wood Brilliant Star Lord. Now it seems that our Perfected Cultivator Yi is not a simple person. Perfected Cultivator Yi is going to suffer now that His Majesty is angry. Whether he admits it or not, I'm afraid he will be severely punished. All kinds of discussions came from the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy soldiers. Apparently, their impression of Yi Xian had changed greatly because of what Yi Xian had done. However, they were not optimistic about the outcome of Yi Xian going to the Lingxiao Hall. In the Lingxiao Hall of the Bullfighting Palace, the Jade Emperor sat on the throne and the Immortals stood side by side. Thousands of rays of auspicious light and immortal qi rose from the clouds, illuminating the entire Lingxiao Hall solemnly. Summon Perfected Cultivator Demon Slayer to the hall. An immortal official announced. Outside the Divine Wind Hall, Yi Xian, accompanied by Venus Taibai, strode into the Lingxiao Hall with the soul-subduing banner in his hand. Hiss! When the Immortals saw Yi Xian holding the soul-subduing banner and emitting a strong evil aura, they all narrowed their eyes and lowered their heads slightly. A trace of surprise flashed across their eyes. Obviously, the Immortals had expected the Jade Emperor to be angry. After entering the Lingxiao Hall, Perfected Cultivator Demon Slayer should immediately kneel and kowtow to ask for forgiveness. However, they did not expect that the situation was completely different from what they had imagined. How dare you, Yi Xian! You killed the Wood Brilliant Star Lord and actually slaughtered his entire residence. This kind of demonic behavior is simply outrageous. The Fire Lord took a step forward and pointed at Yi Xian as he angrily rebuked. Your Majesty, Yi Xian has no respect for the heavenly rules. He has done such a cruel thing. He should be stripped of his immortal record and sent to the animal path to experience 1,000 samsara. Military Star Lord stepped forward and reported to the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor, the supreme ruler of the three realms, covered his face with a veil and said in a dignified and harsh voice, Yi Xian, do you admit your crime? Admit my crime? Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. He strode forward with the soul-subduing banner in his hand and stood in the center of the Lingxiao Hall. He looked around at the immortals and finally looked at the Jade Emperor. Jade Emperor, you said that I am guilty. What crime have I committed? How dare you call His Majesty by his full name? This is the Lingxiao Hall. How dare a little immortal like you act so presumptuously? Fire Brilliant Star Lord and Wuda Star Lord rebuked loudly, but the immortals' expressions changed. They quietly sized up Yi Xian, and their eyes were filled with shock. Could it be that Yi Xian wanted to rebel against the Celestial Court? You killed the Wood Brilliant Star Lord and slaughtered his entire mansion. Isn't that what you did? The Jade Emperor said majestically, and his vast immortal pressure rolled in the Lingxiao Hall. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was fearless as he abruptly stabbed the soul-suppressing banner into the white jade ground, causing a loud bang to ring out. His expression was gloomy as he said, "Since the Jade Emperor said that I killed the Wood Brilliant Star Lord, then show me the evidence to prove that I did it." As Yi Xian finished speaking, the entire Lingxiao Hall was dead silent. Even the Jade Emperor's expression was extremely gloomy. It was because he could not show any evidence, and Yi Xian had done it flawlessly. Looking at the Jade Emperor's silence, Yi Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. He believed in his methods. With the secret technique of the primordial spirit void, even if the Celestial Court had a secret treasure like the Divine Mirror, they would definitely not be able to find out that he was the one who did it. How dare you? The truth is right in front of you. How can you argue? Fire Brilliant Star Lord said angrily. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was not moved by Fire Brilliant Star Lord's angry rebuke. Instead, he looked at the Jade Emperor with narrowed eyes and said in a low voice, "Jade Emperor, please uphold justice." Chapter 252. Yi Xian, I am the Lord of the Three Realms. I can see through everything. I will definitely not let you be wronged. I can only put you in jail first. After the matter is investigated, I will give you justice. Where are the four heavenly kings? I am here. The four heavenly kings stepped forward and bowed to the Jade Emperor. For the time being, keep Yi Xian in custody. When the truth is found out in the future, justice will be served to the Yi family. The Jade Emperor said sternly with a righteous attitude. The four heavenly kings were stunned. They could only walk toward Yi Xian awkwardly. It was obvious that they had to follow the Jade Emperor's orders. Humph. Suddenly, Yi Xian snorted and waved the soul-suppressing banner in his hand. The entire Lingxiao Hall shook violently, and the screams of ghosts could be heard. I am the reincarnation of the ancient Daluo Jinxian. I am beyond the three realms and not in the five elements. Even the Celestial Court has no right to detain me. If the Jade Emperor does this, then don't blame me for being unreasonable. Rumble. The tiny immortal light shot in all directions. The soul-suppressing banner swayed. Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands, and an extremely terrifying aura spread out. The four heavenly kings' expressions changed drastically. They did not know what to do. How dare you, Yi Xian? Are you rebelling? Jade Emperor, this Daoist is arrogant and domineering. We should send him to the immortal slaying platform. The Fire Lord and Wuda Lord shouted angrily. The numinous treasures in their hands shone with bright immortal light. They had already joined forces with the four heavenly kings to surround Yi Xian. They looked like they were going to attack Yi Xian together. The Celestial Court has gone too far today. Don't blame me for being presumptuous. Yi Xian's expression was cold. He waved the soul-suppressing banner violently. He did not care about the immortals present at all. He formed a seal with both hands, and a large amount of Tai immortal light suppressed the four heavenly kings and the two celestial lords. Bang bang bang! Immortal light exploded, and the soaring clouds shook. When Yi Xian attacked, if not for the protection of the soaring clouds palace's heaven-guarding formation, Yi Xian's attack would have shattered the soaring cloud's palace. Puff! Puff! The 4 heavenly kings and the 2 star lords were only true immortals. How could they be a match for Yi Xian? With just one strike, the 6 of them were heavily injured. Blood continuously flowed from the corners of their mouths. The immortals watched coldly. From time to time, they would size up Yi Xian and secretly observe the changes in the Jade Emperor's expression. At this moment, the Jade Emperor's expression was gloomy. Zhou Shi's immortal light was slightly chaotic. His jade-like palms were clenched and released at times. A hint of killing intent appeared in his eyes when he looked at Yi Xian. However, he quickly suppressed that emotion. In fact, what happened today was just a test by the Jade Emperor to Yi Xian. If Yi Xian surrendered, it would prove that he had no backing. The Jade Emperor could naturally do whatever he wanted to Yi Xian. However, the Jade Emperor did not expect Yi Xian's attitude to be so intense. He had the intention to destroy everything. This also made him afraid. He kept guessing who Yi Xian had as his backer. Actually, Yi Xian seemed to be arrogant and despotic right now, and he didn't seem to be afraid at all. In fact, he was panicking in his heart. This was his bet, and he was also taking risks. From the moment the Wood Brilliant Star Lord targeted him, Yi Xian knew that the Jade Emperor was behind it. If he showed his weakness today, the outcome that awaited him would definitely be extremely miserable. Not to mention that there were several primordial Unity Golden Immortals present. Yi Xian could not see through the Jade Emperor's cultivation. If the Jade Emperor personally attacked him, even if he had a secret technique like the Primordial Spirit Void, he might not be able to escape from the Heaven Realm. Back then, when the monkey wreaked havoc in the Heavenly Palace, it was because his backer was strong enough. The Jade Emperor could not afford to offend him at all. He could only let the monkey do whatever he wanted and did not dare to do anything. However, Yi Xian knew his own family's matters. He didn't have any roots and was just alone. How could he compare to that monkey? Yi Xian could only display a fearless expression, as if he had a backer behind him. Only by doing this would the Jade Emperor become even more fearful of him. The Jade Emperor was testing Yi Xian. Wasn't Yi Xian testing the Jade Emperor too? This was a silent contest between the two of them. It was a contest to see who showed fear first and who would lose first. Moreover, Yi Xian knew that if he could survive this calamity, he would be able to establish his prestige very well. He could also lay a foundation in the Celestial Court and let the immortals in the Heaven Realm know that he, Yi Xian, was not a simple person. Not everyone could provoke him. The Jade Emperor's expression was uncertain. He silently watched Yi Xian's expression, trying to see the panic on his face. However, Yi Xian was unbridled. When he waved the soul-subduing banner, a large number of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals were sent flying. There was no sign of him being timid at all. All of you, back off. Minister Yi, don't be angry. The Jade Emperor finally could not help but pretended to be dignified and said, "Buzz." Yi Xian kept the soul-subduing banner. His expression was resolute and unyielding. The immortals looked at him with a strange look in their eyes. They were all guessing what kind of background Yi Xian had to dare to resist the Jade Emperor in the Lingshao Hall. Jade Emperor, since the Celestial Court thinks that I, Yi Xian, am easy to bully, then I don't care about the position of immortal. From now on, I will go to the lower realm and be a carefree scattered immortal. As Yi Xian spoke, he kept the soul-subduing banner and was about to walk out of the Lingshao Hall. However, how could the Jade Emperor let him go? Minister Yi, don't be angry. I just want to test your cultivation. I will entrust you with a heavy responsibility. How can I really put you in the heavenly prison? The Jade Emperor smiled and stood up. He was no longer angry and kept comforting Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped. He knew that he had to stop when he was ahead. If he really did not know when to stop, the Jade Emperor would fall out with him. This was not the result he wanted to see. Your Majesty, the matter of the Wood Brilliant Star Lord has nothing to do with me. There must be a villain who deceived your majesty. Your majesty, please help me. Yi Xian pretended to be distressed and said. Buzz! Suddenly, when the immortals were watching coldly from the side, thousands of rays of light bloomed in the sky. A golden talisman fell from the 33 heavens. When the golden talisman spread out, billions of rays of golden light covered the Lingxiao Hall. Whether it was the Jade Emperor or the immortals present, they all widened their eyes and were completely stunned on the spot. Yu Qing's decree. The Jade Emperor exclaimed in shock. His face turned extremely pale. The immortals even kowtowed. Every immortal's eyes were filled with panic. At the beginning of the world, Tao was born. Yi Xian fell from the primeval age and returned to the Tao sect. He is now conferred the title of Yu Qing's heavenly guardian. Rows of golden words filled the sky. When the golden words dissipated, a golden talisman descended, causing Yi Xian to receive it in a daze. His pupils slightly constricted. Yi Daoyu, aren't you going to thank Yuanshi Tianzuan? Venus Taibai reminded with a trembling voice. I obey Yuanshi Tianzuan's decree. Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down. He held the golden decree in his hand and said respectfully. Outside the 33 heavens, Jade Palace. A Daoist was surrounded by the aura of chaos. No one could see his face clearly. However, when he opened and closed his eyes, they seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. He was looking down at Yi Xian in the heavenly palace. Heaven and earth have been turned upside down. Saints don't appear. Murderous star has appeared and the heavenly Tao has collapsed. Let me see how far this kid can go in this immeasurable calamity. Chapter 253. Outside the Trayastrimsa heaven, Aquamarine Palace. Four immortal swords flew across the sky and a Daoist laughed. Senior brother, you are still the same. You can't hold it in anymore. Can you still protect your clan of Chan in this calamity? Outside the Trayastrimsa heaven, an old Daoist sat cross-legged and sighed. West Spirit Mountain, 10,000 Dharma Buddhist Kingdom. Two Taoists had black and white chess pieces in front of them. They were playing a game of chess, giving off an illusory feeling. Senior brother, the calamity has begun. Yuanshi can't sit still anymore. Junior brother, don't be impatient. When the time is right, we will let him join our Buddhist sect. Above the 9 heavens, Void's secret realm. A Daoist in a green robe looked at the heavenly palace. His aura was gloomy and cold. My good disciple, everyone below the sage is an ant. You will never understand that this world is not as simple as you think. Celestial Court, Lingxiao Palace. The golden light in the sky dissipated. The jade clear talisman fell into his hand. Yi Xian's mind was in turmoil. No one knew that when the jade clear talisman appeared, the heaven-destroying halberd and the bronze immortal sutra in his sea of consciousness went berserk. If he did not suppress it, these two things would have burst out from his sea of consciousness. At this moment, the Jade Emperor's face was pale. He looked at Yi Xian with fear. Today, the jade clear talisman fell from the sky. This completely proved his previous guess. Yi Xian's background was too strong. He was obviously from the clan of Chan. What shocked the Jade Emperor the most was that after so many years, the sage had already escaped into the chaos and was no longer in the eyes of the world. But today, because of Yi Xian, the jade clear talisman fell from the heavenly palace. This was simply unimaginable. Not only was the Jade Emperor in turmoil, the other immortals' expressions changed too. They were more curious about Yi Xian's identity. What was the relationship between this Daoist and Yuanshi Tianzuan? Could it be, he was the second-generation disciple of the clan of Chan? When this thought appeared in the hearts of the immortals, a look of horror appeared on their faces. They looked at Yi Xian with a look of fear in their eyes. How dare you? How dare you slander the guardian god of Chan school? If you don't give us justice today, we won't let this matter rest. Celestial Lord Longevity of the South stepped forward, followed by a large number of immortals. They occupied more than half of the immortals in the Lingxiao Hall, which also proved how much weight the Chanism had in the celestial court. Previously, Chongqing Tianzuan wasn't sure if Yi Xian was a member of the Chan sect. But now, even Yuanshi Tianzuan's Yuqing Talisman decree had appeared. This completely proved that Yi Xian was a member of the Chan sect. Jade Emperor, the Fire Virtue Starlord and the Martial Virtue Starlord framed the heavenly guardians of the Chan sect. Jade Emperor, please uphold justice for the heavenly guardians of the Chan sect. Celestial Venerable Changsheng made a Taoist bow and his voice was extremely sharp. At this moment, the complicated forces of the celestial court also appeared. Obviously, Chongqing Tianzuan and many other immortals with high cultivation were from the clan of Chan, and some of them were from the clan of Jia. Some of them were gods conferred by the investiture of the gods. Since the investiture of the gods was in the Jade Emperor's hands, these immortals were naturally under the Jade Emperor's command. Guards, take the Fire Lord and Wu De Star to the immortal slaying platform. Strip them of their immortal records and send them to the path of animals for 10 reincarnations. As the master of the three realms, the Jade Emperor naturally knew how to make a choice. Although he was the mastermind behind this matter, now that the situation had changed, he had to find a scapegoat. He could only throw the two of them out to calm the anger of the Chan school. Your Majesty, please spare our lives. When the Fire Lord and Wu De Star were begging for mercy, the four heavenly kings quickly stepped forward. They took out the immortal binding rope and tied the two up. They were escorted out of the Lingxiao Hall and towards the immortal slaying platform. If this scene had happened before the appearance of the Jade Pure Decree, Yi Xian would have felt relieved. However, he did not feel anything now. His aura was extremely fluctuating. Yuanshi Tianzuan was one of the three pure saints outside the 33 levels of heaven. Yi Xian did not expect that he would be noticed by Yuanshi Tianzuan and even be given the Jade Pure Decree. After all, he was not from the earth immortal realm. The great tribulation of witches and demons and the fall of the untainted land were all fabricated by him. However, the appearance of the Jade Pure Decree had completely turned this lie into reality. How could Yi Xian not be frightened? The mind of a saint was unpredictable. Yi Xian only wanted to hide in the dark and constantly improve his cultivation. This was the path he wanted to take. However, the appearance of the Jade Pure Decree had completely disrupted his plan. Moreover, Yi Xian had an intuition that Yuanshi Tianzuan was not so kind as to confer the title of Divine Protector to him. He must have his own purpose. One could see the whole leopard from a single spot. Since Yuanshi Tianzuan knew of his existence, how could the other saints not know? Yi Xian now felt as if he was walking on thin ice. He felt that he had fallen into a terrible predicament. If he made a mistake, he was afraid that he would not even know how he died. Yi Xian had a faint guess. Could it be that the true body of the origin spirit was also one of the saints? Or was he Yuanshi Tianzuan? Thinking of this possibility, Yi Xian felt his scalp tingle. He did not dare to continue thinking about it. Minister Yi, I've really wronged you. When Yi Xian was deep in thought, the Jade Emperor personally walked towards him. He had an ashamed look on his face as he constantly comforted Yi Xian. Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not reply. He uneasily rode a cloud and left the Lingxiao Hall. This also stunned the Jade Emperor. He looked deeply at Yi Xian's back and did not say anything. After all, the Jade Pure Decree had already been issued. Even if he was unwilling, he could not do anything to Yi Xian. After leaving the Lingxiao Hall, Yi Xian rode a cloud back to the Chaotic Cloud Palace. The doors of the Chaotic Cloud Palace were tightly shut. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on a futon. He stared at the Jade Pure Decree in his hand. When his eyes opened and closed, there was an extremely sinister look. This Jade Pure Decree seemed to be his protective talisman. However, in Yi Xian's eyes, it was a talisman that hastened his death. The will of a saint could not be defied. Everyone below the saint was an ant. He was just a small grand unity mystic immortal. How could he attract the attention of a saint? Yi Xian knew very well that the root of all this was related to Yuanling. The heaven-destroying halberd and the bronze immortal sutra in his body must have an unimaginable origin. That was why a saint had noticed him. What should I do? Yi Xian kept asking himself. He was deep in thought. Buzz! Half a day later, Yi Xian woke up from his thoughts. When he waved his hand, 3 items appeared in front of him. The first item was the bronze immortal sutra that Yuanling had left behind. The second item was the #1 killing weapon of all time, the heaven-destroying halberd. The third item was the river Styx diagram that Blood River Ancestor had given to him. The bronze immortal sutra was made of unknown materials. It recorded all the skills of the immortal sutra. Yi Xian had even obtained the forbidden chapter from it. Ever since the heaven-destroying halberd entered the earth immortal world, its murderous aura had been extremely restrained. Yi Xian could feel that the heaven-destroying halberd contained an unimaginably terrifying power. However, this power could not be used by him. As for the river Styx diagram, Yi Xian did not look at it carefully. Instead, he focused all his attention on the bronze immortal sutra and the heaven-destroying halberd. Buzz! Suddenly, something strange happened. The pages of the bronze immortal sutra flipped. Black immortal characters spread out and instantly submerged the jade pure decree. The golden light on the decree was directly swallowed up. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The jade pure decree was instantly turned into ashes. The black immortal characters suddenly rushed into Yi Xian's glabella. He was stunned. Calamity Transcender Technique. After a full 10 breaths of time, Yi Xian cried out in shock, and his face turned extremely red. It was all because the immortal text just now was actually a secret technique that he had never seen in the forbidden section. What was the Calamity Transcender Technique? The world was a slaughterhouse and all living beings were food. The Calamity Transcender Technique walked the path of stealing the heavens. Not only could it devour the immortal's Tao fruit, but it could also turn the immortal's divine powers into one's own. This was the terror of the Calamity Transcender Technique. Yi Xian was pleasantly surprised, but he was even more astonished. This was because there was no such technique in the forbidden chapter, and the Jade Clear Talisman decree was tainted with the aura of a saint, yet the Bronze Immortal Sutra was able to devour it and evolve it into this heaven-defying technique. Yi Xian could not understand. However, he did not think about it anymore. Since he had already caught the attention of a sage, it was useless for him to worry about it day and night. He could only take one step at a time. Moreover, Yi Xian also understood that if a sage wanted to harm him, with his current cultivation, he would not be able to resist. The only thing he had to do now was to constantly improve his cultivation. As long as he was strong, whether it was the Jade Emperor or the High and Mighty Sage, he would have the ability to protect himself. Moreover, Yi Xian had a faint guess that the Bronze Immortal Sutra and the Heaven-Punishing Halberd must be related to the sage. There were great secrets hidden in them. If he could find out these secrets one day, he might have the means to fight against the sage. Now that he had the Calamity Transcender technique, he could quickly improve his cultivation. Not to mention, there were countless kinds of heaven and earth spirit medicines in this heaven realm. His cultivation would be improved qualitatively. Chapter 254. In the Bullfighting Palace. The Jade Emperor was wearing a green Taoist robe, and Venus Taibai was reporting something to him. Your Majesty, Yi Xian has the Jade Pure Decree. Your Majesty, you have to bear with it for the time being. Bear with it? The Jade Emperor laughed self-deprecatingly, and his face gradually darkened. He looked at Venus Taibai and said, as the master of the 3 realms, I can bear with the 3 pure ones, but do I have to bear with a little Taoist? This kid is extremely daring. Not only did he kill the Wood Brilliant Star Lord, but he also dared to sneak into the Moon Palace. Does he really think that he can look down on me just because he has the Jade Pure Decree? Hearing the Jade Emperor's words, Venus Taibai was stunned. He did not expect Yi Xian to be so daring as to sneak into the Moon Palace. No wonder the Jade Emperor was so against him. One had to know that the Moon Fairy was the Jade Emperor's taboo. All the immortals in the Heaven Realm knew that the Jade Emperor was obsessed with the Moon Fairy. In the distant past, the Canopy Marshal had flirted with the Moon Fairy. In a fit of anger, the Jade Emperor had sent him into the path of the beast to reincarnate for 1,000 generations. From this, it could be seen how much the Jade Emperor valued the Moon Fairy. Venus Taibai finally understood why the Jade Emperor was so furious. It turned out that the root of everything was the Moon Fairy. The Jade Emperor paced back and forth in the bullfighting palace. The aura around him became gloomier. Even his handsome face was slightly distorted. It made Taibai Jinxing keep quiet out of fear. He did not dare to make a sound because he knew that the Jade Emperor was on the verge of exploding with rage. Venus Taibai. Yes, Your Majesty. Spread this void image. I want to see how this Yi Xian will survive this calamity even with the Jade Clear Talisman Edict in his hands. The Jade Emperor tossed out a cyan jade slip. Under the fluctuation of immortal light, the scene of Yi Xian leaving the Guanghan Immortal Palace appeared. This caused Taibai Jinxing to be stunned, and his face turned pale. Your Majesty, you mustn't do this. If this scene were to spread, not to mention the other celestial beings, I'm afraid that your nephew Yang Jian would. Taibai Jinxing stuttered. That nephew of mine is arrogant and unruly, and he's even a disciple of the Jade Void sect. He doesn't even put me, his uncle, in his eyes. It's a good opportunity for Yang Jian to kill Yi Xian's spirit. Looking at the Jade Emperor's sinister expression, Taibai Jinxing's eyes narrowed. Since ancient times, femme fatale. That saying was true. Taibai Jinxing deeply understood that if this void image were to be spread out, then true Lord Erlang would definitely be furious. Even if Yi Xian had the Jade Clear Talisman in his hands, he definitely wouldn't have a good time. Yang Jian, the third-generation disciple of the Chan sect, was a disciple of the immortal Yuding. His arts of 8-9 were extremely terrifying, and he had the divine power of the 36 heavenly dipper transformations. His third dharma eye could see through the heaven, earth, and man realms. He was known as the #1 war god of the three realms. When the monkey wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, the Jade Emperor begged Yang Jian to subdue the monkey. Although there were some twists and turns, it proved that the #1 war god of the three realms deserved his reputation. Most importantly, it was said that Yang Jian had been in seclusion for 10,000 years and was about to enter the Daluo Jingxian realm. His cultivation was even more mysterious. How could Yi Xian, a mere Tai Xian Immortal, be a match for Yang Jian? Tai Xian Immortal, Tai Golden Immortal, Overarching Heaven Xian Immortal, Overarching Heaven Golden Immortal, until he entered the Daluo Jingxian realm. Yi Xian and Yang Jian were 3 realms apart. The Jade Emperor's plan of killing with a borrowed knife was indeed extremely vicious. Venus Taibai didn't dare to say anything. He took the green jade slip and left. Looking at Venus Taibai's back, the Jade Emperor stood alone in the bullfighting palace and said in an extremely gloomy voice, Yi Xian, I didn't want to make things difficult for you. But who asked you to violate my taboo? At the same time, the chaotic cloud palace was very lively these days. Immortals from all over the world came to congratulate him. Yi Xian received them with a smile. Naturally, he drank and chatted happily with the immortals of the heaven realm. The 3,000 Heavenly River Navy guarded the chaotic cloud palace and completely established Yi Xian's foundation in the heaven realm. However, Yi Xian wasn't arrogant at all. Other than receiving the visiting immortals, he didn't go out at all. In the chaotic cloud palace, he crazily cultivated the Calamity Transcender technique and the immortal scripture, hoping to break through to the Tai Golden Immortal realm as soon as possible. However, cultivation wasn't something that could be achieved overnight. Although Yi Xian was extremely talented, he had just become an immortal. Moreover, he directly crossed several realms and entered the Tai Xian Immortal realm. This was already a miracle. It was obviously impossible for him to enter the Tai Golden Immortal realm in a short time. Most of the immortals in the Heaven realm were in the Xian Immortal or Golden Immortal realm. There were only a few of them in the Tai realm. As for the immortals with real divine abilities, how could they be bound by the small Heaven realm? They had already wandered far away. For example, the great god of the three seas, Neza, was an overarching Heaven Xian Immortal. He was only one step away from entering the overarching Heaven Golden Immortal realm. He was only 2 steps away from Daluo Jingxian, who was beyond the 3 realms and not in the 5 elements. Although Yi Xian was labeled as a member of the Chan sect, the real great divines wouldn't lower themselves to visit him. This was also the pride of the great divines. Therefore, although Yi Xian seemed to be glorious now, in the eyes of the great divines, he was just a small immortal. Yi Xian was also aware of his own situation, but he wasn't discouraged. He could go from immortal to a Tai Xian Immortal in less than 10 years. He was confident that he could break through to the Tai Golden Immortal realm within 10 years and ascend to the 9 heavens step by step. He even wanted to take a peek at the legendary Sage realm. In the chaotic cloud palace, a stream of immortal qi gushed out of Yi Xian's mouth. He slowly opened his eyes, and a wisp of blood-red immortal light quietly flashed across his eyes. I've mastered the Tribulation Transcender technique, but with the immortals of the Heaven realm nearby, it's too eye-catching to kill an immortal and devour their cultivation. However, if I continue to cultivate step by step, it will take at least 5,000 years to reach the Tai Golden Immortal realm. Yi Xian frowned slightly. His voice was slightly unwilling, and he fell into deep thought. If it took 5,000 years to step into the next realm, Yi Xian absolutely couldn't accept it. Now that he had become the target of public criticism, such a long cycle would only lead to unexpected changes. In fact, Yi Xian didn't know that although 5,000 years seemed long, it was actually just a snap of the fingers in the eyes of the other immortals. If they could advance by a large realm, it would make them go wild with joy. From immortal to a celestial immortal, other immortals would need at least 10,000 years to cultivate bitterly. However, from a celestial immortal to a Tai Xian Immortal, it would take hundreds of thousands of years. In the immortal realm, every advancement by a large realm would take an endless amount of time. Yi Xian could go from immortal to a Tai Xian Immortal in 10 years. This was already a fantasy. Spiritual essence of heaven and earth, golden core immortal peach. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and his voice was extremely strange. Yi Xian stayed in the celestial court, enduring the Jade Emperor's spying. He was walking on thin ice. He was doing this for the spirit pills and treasures unique to the Heaven realm. Only these things could allow his cultivation to increase at a terrifying rate in the shortest time possible. Chapter 255. The wealth of the celestial court was unimaginable. This was also the reason why Yi Xian had been so patient and had not left. He had been planning for his own cultivation. However, Yi Xian also knew that there were too many forbidden areas in the celestial court. The first was the Peach Garden, where immortal-grade peaches that were between 3,000 and 9,000 years old were planted. The second was the Tushita Palace of Taishang Laojun, where there were countless elixirs and miraculous medicines. There were even elixirs that could allow mortals to become immortals. There was also the legendary 9 Transformations Golden Elixir that could raise an immortal's realm. The third was the Celestial Court's treasure house, where there were countless immortal spells and weapons, as well as countless spiritual items of the universe. However, Yi Xian was very annoyed. The Peach Garden was protected by the Heaven Ceiling Formation. Even if he had the primordial spirit void, he could not sneak into the Peach Garden. If he tried to break the formation by force, it would definitely lead to great changes. The Tushita Palace was the Taishang Laojun's place of enlightenment. The Taishang Laojun was the external incarnation of Lao Tzu, one of the 3 pure ones. He helped the Jade Emperor to control the 3 realms. Even if Yi Xian was brave, he would not dare to sneak into the Tushita Palace to steal the elixirs. The key to the Celestial Court's treasure house was controlled by the Jade Emperor. If Yi Xian wanted to get the key to the Celestial Court's treasure house from the Jade Emperor, he would be courting death. Yi Xian thought hard but could only shake his head helplessly. These 3 forbidden areas were really tempting to him, but there was nothing he could do. Yi Xian could not help but sigh. It was a great fortune for the monkey to be able to eat the peach garden and golden elixir. However, Yi Xian also knew that the monkey wreaked havoc in the celestial court with the tacit consent of Buddhism and Taoism. How could he compare to the monkey? Yi Xian became more and more frustrated as he racked his brains. However, before he could think of a way to increase his cultivation, a series of hurried footsteps came from outside the chaotic cloud palace. Yi Daoyu, quickly descend to the lower realm and hide for 1,000 years. Heavenly Venerable Changsheng rushed into the chaotic cloud palace with an anxious look on his face. Before Yi Xian could ask what was going on, Heavenly Venerable Changsheng urged him to hurry. Fellow Taoist, what happened? Yi Xian was startled, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. Looking at Yi Xian's confused expression, the Longevity Celestial Lord reprimanded him. Let me ask you, did you sneak into the Moon Palace? Yi Xian's expression changed drastically as soon as Empyrean Longevity finished speaking. One had to know that him sneaking into the Guanghan Palace was a secret between him and the Guanghan Fairy. How could it have reached the ears of Empyrean Longevity? Looking at Yi Xian's stunned expression, Heavenly Lord Changsheng sighed and said, Fellow Taoist, what should I say to you? That day, I repeatedly told you to take a detour when you pass by the Moon Palace. Why didn't you listen to my advice and do such a foolish thing? At this moment, Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down. He kept recalling his experience in the Moon Palace. Suddenly, an idea flashed across his mind. He finally knew where the problem was. When he left the Moon Palace that day, because of the Fairy of the Moon Palace's words, his aura became chaotic and a flaw appeared in his primordial spirit void. For a moment, his figure was revealed. However, Yi Xian did not care about it. But now, it seemed that the problem occurred at that time. It exposed the fact that he had entered the Moon Palace. Fellow Taoist, how did you know that I had entered the Moon Palace? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked. Oh, I'm not the only one who knows about this. The entire Celestial Court knows that you have entered the Moon Palace without permission. You'd better go to the lower realm and hide for 1,000 years. Otherwise, a disaster will befall you. Heavenly Venerable Changsheng was exasperated. Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. I have known the Fairy of the Moon Palace since the Untainted Land. Now that I have reappeared, what's wrong with meeting her? Did I violate any heavenly rules? Yi Xian was now a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. Since the matter had been exposed, he would let nature take its course. He even said some high-sounding words. Fellow Taoist, it doesn't matter even if you have violated the heavenly rules. Because you are the Yuqing guardian deity conferred by Yuanshi Tianzuan, the Celestial Court can't do anything to you. But you should never have gone to the Moon Palace. Immortal Venerable Changsheng explained the seriousness of the matter to Yi Xian. This made Yi Xian's face turn gloomy. Only then did he know why Immortal Venerable Changsheng was so anxious. There were countless immortals, Buddhas, and great demons in the 3 realms who admired the Fairy of the Moon Palace. Yi Xian's actions had directly violated their taboo. Not to mention, if the true Lord Erlang were to find out about this, he would definitely ascend to the heavens and teach Yi Xian a lesson. Yi Xian had never forgotten that Primogenitor Demon was a primordial unity golden immortal, but he was still chased by Yang Jian for hundreds of millions of miles. In the end, he was sealed in the retrograde passage by a group of immortals. He was now only a primordial unity Xian immortal. If Yang Jian really came to the heavens to find trouble with him, even though he was conferred as the Yuqing guardian deity and belonged to the same lineage as Yang Jian, his life would not be in danger. But he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Fellow Taoist, the pure young golden immortal Lu Dongxian is my best friend. He has a Taoist temple in the Earth Immortal Realm's Black Cave Mountain. Go down to the mortal realm secretly and take my spiritual talisman to his place to hide for a while. When the news dies down, return to the celestial court. Immortal Venerable Changsheng threw out a spiritual talisman and handed it directly to Yi Xian. He kept urging him to go down to the mortal realm as soon as possible. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was gloomy, but he did not move. He knew that Immortal Venerable Changsheng was doing this for his own good. He wanted him to escape this great calamity. But Yi Xian also knew that if he escaped to the mortal realm like this, his reputation would be completely ruined in the future. Sage Erlang Xiansheng, Yi Xian said in a gloomy voice. His eyes flickered with a bloody light as he directly rejected the spirit talisman that Heavenly Sovereign Changsheng handed over. He said, "If he really wants to cause trouble for me without any reason, this humble Taoist will naturally not be afraid of him." Immortal Venerable Changsheng looked at Yi Xian's fearless face and said in exasperation, "Fellow Taoist, you are really stupid. My junior brother Yang Jian is an all-heaven golden immortal. He is only one step away from entering the realm of Daluo Jingxian. Even though he does not take the Jade Emperor seriously, he is extremely domineering in the Chan sect. Other than his master, Immortal Yu Ding, he does not listen to anyone. Brother, I appreciate your kindness. Even though Yang Jian is the war god of the three realms, if he thinks that I am easy to bully, he is very wrong," Yi Xian said coldly. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flash of blood-red light. "Come, send Immortal Venerable Changsheng off." Before Immortal Venerable Changsheng could continue to persuade him, Yi Xian turned and left. This made Immortal Venerable Changsheng sigh helplessly. He flung his sleeves and left the chaotic cloud palace on a cloud. In fact, Immortal Venerable Changsheng had been very kind to Yi Xian. If it were not for the Jade Pure Decree, he would not have gotten involved in this matter at all. Yang Jian was one of the most outstanding among the third-generation disciples of the Chan sect. He was not someone Immortal Venerable Changsheng could compare with. Earth Immortal Realm, Guanjiang Estuary, Shumi Cave. A young immortal general in silver chainmail and cloud boots was sitting cross-legged in the void to cultivate. Chapter 256. His face was like jade and there was a vertical eye between his eyebrows. Beside him was a three-pointed double-edged sword that floated up and down in the void. His body occasionally emitted a golden light that caused the Sumera Grotto heaven to distort slightly. This person was Yang Jian, the Divine Lord Erlang, the #1 god of war in the three realms. Second Master. The void was chaotic and ripples spread. The eldest of the 7 monsters of Plum Mountain, Yuan Hong, spoke loudly, causing Yang Jian to slowly open his eyes. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Yang Jian asked. "Second Master, look." Yuan Hong didn't say anything else. He tossed out a cyan jade slip and directly displayed the image of Yi Xian leaving the Guanghan Palace. When this scene appeared in Yang Jian's eyes, it instantly caused him to suffocate and his expression to instantly darken. "What a thief! How dare you sneak into the Moon Palace?" Yang Jian's eyes were cold and murderous. The power of an all-heaven golden immortal caused the entire Sumera Grotto heaven to rumble as if it would collapse at any time. Who is this Taoist? Doesn't he know that the Moon Palace is a forbidden area in the three realms? Yang Jian tried his best to control his aura, but his voice became colder and colder. "Second Master, I've already investigated. This Taoist's name is Yi Xian. Because he killed Primogenitor Demon, the Jade Emperor conferred him the title of Divine Lord Demon Slayer," Yuan Hong reported truthfully. "Divine Lord Demon Slayer?" Yang Jian narrowed his eyes and said with a slight contempt. "My uncle is quite interesting. Other than Demon Slayer, he has the same title as me. Is Yi Xian also an all-heaven golden immortal?" Yang Jian said coldly. Looking at Yang Jian's cold face, Yuan Hong whispered, "Big brother, this Taoist is only a Tai mystic immortal. Perhaps he is someone in the celestial court, but in front of Second Master, he is nothing. It's just that, It's just that what? Yang Jian's eyes narrowed. Second Master, there is a Jade Clear decree outside the 33 heavens that conferred Yi Xian the title of Jade Clear Divine Protector. Hearing Yuan Hong's words, Yang Jian's eyes narrowed. He didn't care about the Jade Emperor's conferment, but the Jade Clear Talisman decree was Yuanshi Tianzuan's will. He had to consider it carefully. After dozens of breaths, Yang Jian woke up from his deep thoughts, and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. So what if he's from Chan school? If we don't teach this Taoist a lesson, I'm afraid there will be lechers who will imitate him. Yang Jian snorted coldly. As the war god of the three realms, even though Yi Xian had the Jade Clear Talisman decree, it was not a big deal to Yang Jian. As long as he did not kill Yi Xian, even Yuanshi Tianzuan could not blame him. After all, saints couldn't be born in the three realms. This had become an ironclad rule after the God Seal War. This world was ruled by Daluo Jingxian, and Yang Jian was about to step into that realm. He really didn't fear anyone in the three realms. Saber, come. Yang Jian said coldly. The all-heaven immortal light rippled in all directions, and the summer space shattered. When he stepped out, he appeared in the sky above the Guan River. On this day, the winds and clouds changed, and the Guan River was overturned. The war god of the three realms, Yang Jian, stepped into the sky with his three-pointed, double-edged saber and silver chainmail, straight into the 33rd heaven. The celestial court, the 33rd heaven. The immortals were shocked and silent, because they all knew that the war god of the three realms was coming to the heaven realm. The four heavenly kings of the southern heavenly gate and Li Jing led 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals to welcome Yang Jian. Yang Jian was the #1 disciple of the third generation of Chan school under the Jade Void sect. His title was Erlang Divine Lord. His 8-9 mysteries Tong Tian could move the earth, and his heavenly spirit 36 transformations was unpredictable. His heavenly eye could illuminate the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. No one could compare to his power. Golden lotuses fell from the sky, and sweet springs gushed from the ground. The heavenly music of the 9 heavens was playing, and the immortals were bowing. From this, it could be seen how high Yang Jian's position in the celestial court was. Yang Jian entered the celestial court and walked past the southern heavenly gate. He did not stay, nor was he in the mood to chat with the immortals. He went straight into the Lingshao Palace and asked the immortals to follow behind him. The Lingshao Palace. There were thousands of auspicious qi and tens of thousands of rays of light. The Jade Emperor was wearing an emperor's robe and sat high up, while the immortals stood below to accompany him. Without waiting for the immortal officials to summon Yang Jian into the palace, Yang Jian held his three-pointed, double-edged saber and went straight into the Lingshao Palace. The all-heaven immortal light around him made the immortals look at him in shock. Yang Jian, why didn't you cultivate at the Guan River? Why did you come to the heaven realm today? The Jade Emperor said sternly. Yang Jian's face was cold and he did not respond to the Jade Emperor's pretense. Instead, he looked around at the immortals and said in a calm and cold voice, I heard that the celestial court's demon slayer immortal Xianqing has an unfathomable cultivation. I've heard of it for a long time. Today, I want to ask for advice from him to verify my cultivation. The immortals did not believe Yang Jian's words. They all knew that Yang Jian came because Yi Xian had sneaked into the Guanghan Celestial Palace. As for the so-called advice, they were afraid that his real purpose was to teach Yi Xian a lesson. Junior brother, you're an all-heaven golden immortal, and Yi Xian is only a Tai Yi Xian immortal. How can he be your opponent? Why don't we just drop the matter? Heavenly Lord Changsheng asked tentatively. Senior brother Changsheng, although we don't have the same master, we're from the same sect. This demon slayer immortal Xianqing is the reincarnation of Daluo Jingxian. It's a good opportunity to verify your cultivation. I hope you won't dissuade me. Yang Jian's voice was cold, but he was telling Heavenly Lord Changsheng that if he continued to speak for Yi Xian, he could not blame Yang Jian for falling out with him. Summon Yi Xian to the Lingxiao Palace, the Jade Emperor said sternly. The Jade Emperor spoke in a dignified manner, but a cold glint flashed across his eyes. His plan to kill with a borrowed knife was about to bear fruit. Lunar Star, Guanghan Palace. The Guanghan fairy held the jade rabbit in her arms and stood under the Tongtian osmanthus tree. Her eyes shone like stars as she looked at the Lingxiao Palace. When she saw Yang Jian standing in the middle of the palace, her cold voice slowly rang out. Yun Yang, although Yi Xian saved your life, he also peeped at this fairy's jade body. It's only right that he has this calamity. Master, please save his life, the jade rabbit pleaded. It was not that she pitied Yi Xian, but because if Yi Xian died, she would not be able to live either. After all, Yi Xian's blood contract was still planted in her primordial spirit. The Guanghan fairy's eyes were cold. Then, she slowly nodded and said, "That's good too. Saving his life today can be considered as helping you repay his kindness." "Thank you, Master," the jade rabbit said happily. On this day, the lunar star shone. The Tongtian osmanthus tree swayed. A moonlight bridge hung down from the celestial court. The Guanghan fairy, who had not walked out of the moon palace for 10,000 years, covered her face with a veil. She was walking along the moonlight bridge towards the Lingxiao Palace. Chaotic Cloud Palace. The immortal official came with the Jade Emperor's instructions and summoned him to the Lingxiao Palace. Yi Xian sent the immortal official away and stood alone in the Chaotic Cloud Palace. His expression was indifferent and silent. When his eyes opened and closed, there was a bloody light flashing violently. Buzz! The space between Yi Xian's eyebrows shone. The heaven-destroying halberd rippled out. It was releasing a fierce aura that had never been seen before. You and I are of the same mind. Today's battle is a battle of dignity for me, Yi Xian. Even if Yang Jian is an all-heaven golden immortal, I will let these immortals know that I, Yi Xian, am not a pushover. Yi Xian's voice was cold. He did not run away and could not run away. This was a battle of dignity. If he ran away, he would become the laughingstock of the three realms. He would also be ridiculed by the Guanghan fairy who thought she was infallible. Now, the only thing Yi Xian could count on was the heaven-destroying halberd. This was because according to the immortal scripture, the heaven-destroying halberd was the #1 killing weapon of all time. It contained incredible power. Most importantly, Yi Xian did not use the heaven-destroying halberd in his battle with Yuan Ling. He also wanted to see if he could cross three realms to fight the war god of the three realms when he transformed into a Grand Unity Xian immortal and wielded the heaven-destroying halberd. This was not only a battle of dignity. It was also a way for Yi Xian to measure his battle strength. This was also related to his next plan. Rumble. Pushing open the door of the Chaotic Cloud Palace, Yi Xian rode on a black cloud and rushed towards the Lingxiao Palace under the gaze of the 3,000 Heavenly River Navy. Chapter 257. Bullfighting Palace, Lingxiao Hall. Yang Jian looked down at the immortals and stood proudly in the middle. He had an aura that made the immortals of the heaven realm not dare to breathe. In terms of cultivation, Yang Jian was the top disciple of the third generation of the Chan school. In terms of cultivation, Yang Jian was an all-heaven golden immortal and was about to enter the realm of Daluo Jingxian. He was also known as the top war god of the three realms. From the immortals of the celestial court to the Hades, Yang Jian was the brightest star no matter where he went. No one could cover his light. The immortals of the heaven realm sighed. It would be fine if Yi Xian escaped, but if he really came to the Lingxiao Hall, even if he wasn't killed by Yang Jian, his fate would be extremely miserable. Fairy Guanghan has arrived. Suddenly, the celestial official said with a trembling voice. A moonlight sky bridge spread out. The goddess of Guanghan covered her face with a veil and was walking on the moonlight sky bridge. When she arrived in the Lingxiao Hall, all the celestials present were stunned into silence. No one had expected that Fairy Guanghan, who hadn't left the Moon Palace for 10,000 years, would actually come to the Celestial Court today. This simply shocked the immortals. At this moment, the Jade Emperor's body stiffened. Yang Jian was no longer arrogant. They all looked at Fairy Guanghan. The infatuation in their eyes seemed to be about to turn into reality. Greetings, Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor was the ruler of the three realms and the master of the Celestial Court. Fairy Guanghan naturally wouldn't be rude. She bowed slightly. Fairy, there's no need to be so polite. The Jade Emperor instantly woke up. His voice trembled slightly. He ignored his dignity and quickly walked down the Lingshao Hall. It seemed that he wanted to help Fairy Guanghan up. Unfortunately, before the Jade Emperor could step forward, the Fairy of Guanghan took 3 steps back. Taibai Jinxing also coughed to remind the Jade Emperor. Immediately, the Jade Emperor woke up. His face was slightly red as he sat back on his throne. Chang'e, why are you here? Yang Jian was overjoyed. He strode toward the Fairy of Guanghan. However, the Fairy of Guanghan frowned and said, "Please conduct yourself with dignity." Even though Fairy Guanghan's face was covered by a veil, she still gave people the feeling that she could only be seen from afar and could not be profaned. She also radiated a cold and pure aura. This made Yang Jian smile awkwardly. He knew that he had been too rash. Greetings, Fairy Guanghan. Yang Jian bowed and cupped his fists at Fairy Guanghan. This made the other immortals look at him with a hint of helplessness in their eyes. It was true that heroes could not resist the charms of beautiful women. When Yang Jian came to the Celestial Court, he did not even greet the Jade Emperor. However, when the Moon Fairy appeared, he bowed solemnly. From this, it could be seen how important the Moon Fairy was to Yang Jian. I heard that Perfected Lord is about to become a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. I have nothing to do in the Moon Palace, so I specially came to the Heavenly Courts to observe Perfected Lord's Tao, skills, and mystical abilities, Fairy Guanghan said softly. Fairy Guanghan did not say that she had anything to do with Yi Xian. Instead, she used the excuse of observing Yang Jian's Tao skills. This made Yang Jian happy. He cupped his fists and said, "If you are willing, I can teach you all my skills. Today, I just want to teach this Taoist Yi Xian a lesson so that he does not know the etiquette of the Celestial Court." Yang Jian did not say that he came to the Celestial Court for Fairy Guanghan. However, his words made it clear that he wanted to please the Fairy of Guanghan. This made the other immortals shake their heads helplessly. They secretly sighed that Yi Xian was really unlucky. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke the Fairy of Guanghan. At this moment, the Jade Emperor sat on the throne. His face was calm, showing the majesty of the Lord of the Three Realms. However, when he opened his eyes, he looked at Yang Jian with a sinister look. If the Jade Emperor saw Yi Xian as a stumbling block, then Yang Jian was a thorn in his heart. He wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. However, he could only think about it because the Jade Emperor knew that it was impossible. Demon Slayer Lord Xianqing has arrived. Suddenly, the voice of an immortal official came from outside the hall. The other immortals' faces changed slightly. They all looked outside the hall. Yi Xian was dressed in black. His black hair fell behind his head. His face was calm, and there was no aura around him. He was walking slowly into the Lingshao Hall. Yi Xian stood in the center of the hall. When he saw the Fairy of Guanghan, his eyes narrowed. He did not expect this woman to be here too. "Minister Yi, Erlang Lord Xianqing has come to the Celestial Court. I heard that you have great Tao skills, so I came to ask you for advice." "What do you want?" the Jade Emperor said sternly. The other immortals looked at each other with different expressions. Everyone sighed in their hearts when they saw Yi Xian appear here. They secretly blamed Yi Xian for not knowing his limits. Did he not know that Yang Jian was here for him? How dare he appear here? Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not respond to the Jade Emperor's question. Instead, he looked at Yang Jian, who was beside the fairy of Guanghan, and smiled. I'm just a grand unity mystic immortal. How can I be a match for Erlang Lord Xiansheng? There's no need for this advice, right? As Yi Xian spoke, the immortals all nodded without the slightest bit of surprise. It was obvious that Yi Xian knew his own limits and knew that he wasn't Yang Jian's match. It was reasonable for him to say such words. At this moment, Yang Jian's smile disappeared as he stared at Yi Xian. A trace of contempt flashed through his eyes because he could tell with a glance that Yi Xian was only a Grand Unity Xian immortal. If he wanted to kill Yi Xian, it would only be a matter of time. If the fairy of Guanghan was not here, and Yi Xian had the Jade Clear Talisman decree, Yang Jian would have taught Yi Xian a lesson since they were both from the clan of enlightenment. But now, the fairy of Guanghan was beside him. In order to show his cultivation, Yang Jian would not let Yi Xian go so easily. Some people might ask, how can the war god of the three realms, Yang Jian, be so arrogant now? How can he be worthy of his identity? In fact, Yang Jian was an extremely cold and wise person. He would not find trouble with Yi Xian if it was something else. But since ancient times, heroes could not resist the charms of beautiful women. In front of the fairy of Guanghan, Yang Jian completely lost his wisdom and calmness. He only wanted to show his martial prowess in front of the fairy of Guanghan. Are you Yi Xian? Yang Jian strode toward Yi Xian, making the other immortals look at him. This humble Taoist is Yi Xian. Yi Xian bowed his head and spoke in a neither humble nor arrogant manner. I heard that you once killed Primordial Demon and made a contribution to the Heaven Realm. You were conferred the title of Demon Slayer Sage Lord. But someone also told me that you sneaked into the Moon Palace when you first entered the Celestial Court. Is this true? Yang Jian looked down at Yi Xian, and his voice gradually became cold. Since the fairy of Guanghan was beside him, Yang Jian did not need to hide anything. He could use Yi Xian to express his intentions to the fairy of Guanghan. I have known the fairy of Guanghan since the primordial world. How can I sneak in when we meet an old friend? Yi Xian said calmly in the face of Yang Jian's oppression. Humph. Yang Jian snorted and said, Yi Xian, the Celestial Court has its own rules. Male immortals are not allowed to enter any fairy's residence. If anyone violates this rule, their immortal status will be removed and they will be banished to the lower realm and become immortal. Don't you know that? Or is it that, as a heavenly deity of the heaven realm, you don't put me in your eyes? Chapter 258. Yang Jian was aggressive and even used the heavenly rules as an excuse to make things difficult for Yi Xian. This made the immortals' expressions change. It seemed that Yang Jian was going to be ruthless to Yi Xian today. Junior brother, Yi Daoyu has just entered the Celestial Court and doesn't know much about the heavenly rules. Why don't we exempt him from punishment this time? Heavenly Venerable Changsheng forced a smile and kept winking at Yi Xian. It was obvious that he was telling Yi Xian to bow down and apologize to Yang Jian so that he could avoid this calamity. At this moment, the Jade Emperor sneered as he watched, but didn't say anything to stop him. The fairy of the Moon Palace had a strange gaze as she slightly stared at Yi Xian, as if she'd already expected Yi Xian to apologize to Yang Jian. After all, Yang Jian was an all-heaven golden immortal. He was a mighty figure in the three realms. How could Yi Xian, a mere Tai Xian immortal, be a match for Yang Jian? In fact, the Guanghan fairy came to the Celestial Court this time to stop Yang Jian for Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian had peeped at her body. Originally, the Guanghan fairy already had a grudge against Yi Xian. At this moment, she could borrow Yang Jian's hands to teach Yi Xian a lesson, but she definitely wouldn't let Yang Jian harm Yi Xian's life. Just when the immortals thought that Yi Xian was going to bow down and apologize to Yang Jian, the next scene made the immortals fall silent and gasp. The smile on Yi Xian's face gradually disappeared. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if two big stars were rotating. When he looked at Yang Jian, there was a trace of murderous intent in his eyes. Heavenly rules? Yi Xian smiled coldly and said, Yang Jian, I gave you some face and you still want to open a dye shop. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Everyone in the three realms has the right to talk to me about the heavenly rules, but you don't. Back then, the Holy Mother of Peach Mountain fell in love with a mortal and married a mortal. That's how you came into being. Have you forgotten how you became the disciple of Immortal? You ding like a dog under the pursuit of the heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals? That's how you saved your mother by splitting Peach Mountain. Where did you put the heavenly rules at that time? As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, Yang Jian's originally arrogant expression completely darkened. The terrifying all-heaven immortal light around him was in chaos, causing the Lingshao Hall to rumble and shake, as if it was about to collapse at any moment. I forgot that your sister, the third Holy Mother of Peach Mountain, was also married to a mortal. But you disregarded your family's kinship. And you disregarded your family's family. And acted as executioner too. And you, but you and you. How dare a heartless and ungrateful thing like you talk about the heavenly rules with me? Wow! The immortals gasped. They looked at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a dead man. Everyone in the three realms knew about Yang Jian's history. But no one dared to talk about it. It was Yang Jian's biggest taboo. He saw it as a stain on his life. Not only did the immortals' faces change, but even the goddess of Moon Palace was shocked. She looked at Yi Xian in panic. She blamed Yi Xian in her heart. Was he courting death? The Jade Emperor was livid. He was speechless. This was not only Yang Jian's scandal, but also his own. The Holy Mother of Peach Mountain was his sister. No one would have thought that Yi Xian would be so daring as to expose the scandal of the past. This caused the immortals to look at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a madman. Good. It was as if the celestial thunder from the 9 heavens was exploding, as if the sun, moon, and stars were exploding. Yang Jian's handsome face was distorted as he looked at Yi Xian with a gaze that had never been seen before. Little Taoist, how dare you humiliate me like this? If I don't destroy your body and soul today, how can I relieve my hatred? Rumble. The all-heaven immortal light shone in all directions. Yang Jian slashed at Yi Xian with his three-pointed, double-edged sword. The world was twisted and shattered. It was a terrifying power. Go! Yi Xian's expression was extremely serious as he faced Yang Jian's slash. He formed an incantation with both hands and his entire body suddenly transformed into a ray of immortal light. He directly disappeared from the Lingshao Hall, barely dodging Yang Jian's immortal slaying slash. Where do you think you're going? Yang Jian was so angry that he was about to explode. How could he let Yi Xian go? When he took a step forward, the Lingshao Hall shook. He turned into a beam of immortal light and chased after Yi Xian. Yi Xian is dead meat. The immortals trembled. They set up their clouds. Even the Jade Emperor and the goddess of Moon Palace rose into the air and rushed to the place where the two were fighting. The 33 layers of heaven. The endless sky was shattering, the Jade Palace was collapsing, and the 90,000 kilometers of the heavenly river was rolling backwards. Yang Jian moved as fast as lightning, and every swing of his blade seemed to be able to destroy everything. As for Yi Xian, he frantically fled, dodging Yang Jian's pursuit in an extremely sorry state. It was not that Yi Xian did not want to fight Yang Jian head-on, but the gap between their realms was too big. One was an all-heaven golden immortal, while the other was a primordial unity mystic immortal. They were like an elephant and an ant. There was no comparison at all. Moreover, Yi Xian could feel that he could not withstand every slash of Yang Jian's. The power of an all-heaven golden immortal would severely injure him in an instant. However, Yi Xian was extremely calm. Since he dared to appear in front of Yang Jian, he was confident that he could face him. It was obviously impossible to fight him head-on. He was just waiting for an opportunity to attack. There was only one chance. If he could severely injure Yang Jian, he would be able to kill him. Splash! 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 The Milky Way rumbled and rolled. Yi Xian's hair was disheveled. His body was covered in cracks, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that even though Yi Xian didn't fight Yang Jian head-on, just the all-heaven immortal light that Yang Jian had slashed out was enough to heavily injure him. Buzz! The air froze and Yi Xian stopped fleeing. He stood above the heavenly river and turned around to look at Yang Jian. A wisp of mournful and malicious killing intent quietly flashed through his eyes. Slash! Yang Jian flew across the sky, his face flushed red from anger. His three-pointed, double-edged blade suddenly slashed out with all-heaven immortal light, violently slashing towards the center of Yi Xian's brows. Soul-subduing banner! Yi Xian roared to the sky. As he waved his hand, the billion soul-subduing banner surged out. Billions of dead souls whizzed out and met the all-heaven immortal light head-on with the power of heaven and earth. Sizzle! Although the billions of souls were terrifying, they melted like snow in the spring when faced with the all-heaven immortal light. The saber light that pierced through the heavens and the earth directly slashed the myriad soul-suppressing banner into two, and its remaining might didn't decrease as it slashed onto Yi Xian's body. Slash! The sound of a blade piercing into flesh could be heard. A terrifying wound appeared on Yi Xian's chest. His flesh was rolling, and the ribs in his chest could be faintly seen. At this moment, a large amount of blood spurted out. Pft! A mouthful of blood sprayed out from Yi Xian's mouth. His face was like golden paper, and the Tai-E immortal light around him shattered at this moment. His entire body was dyed in blood as he fell towards the heavenly river below. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.